My boss got the email, he forwarded it to me, and he's like, do you want to do this? And I thought, well, I guess I was kind of the right guy that was chosen to do this thing, I guess. But maybe it was like a joke or something. Maybe it was like a psyop on me or something. I don't even know.
Do you want a chocolate?
Truthseekers, seek of truth. A truth so bold it's hard to hold. Truthseekers, truthseekers, yeah. Place the cash, place the cash.
Greetings and salutations, friends, and welcome back. We are back here tonight, and I realize I'm a bit late to the party, having just returned from, I think it was 4 glorious nights and 3 pretty good days at the cabin. And during that time, Mr. David Grusch, who has been making out-of-this-world claims for, I believe it's 196 days so far, got an interview with Tucker Carlson, a huge interview, and good for Mr. Carlson, who got 5.4 million monetized views with this interview. But one thing that you will notice is suspiciously absent from this interview is any evidence of David Grusch's claims. I have been sort of harping on the fact that it's been 196 days, and various members of the media, most notably News Nation, Ross Coulthard, and others. By the way, we've caught Ross Coulthard in yet another fake story from some time back. Perhaps if we have time tonight, I will share that one with you. All these, I would call them less than credible, less than ethical members of the media have been all too quick to jump onto the David Grusch money train. And let's be clear, that's what it is so far. It is a money train that is various, people are making content with this person who has absolutely no evidence. I don't quite understand it. I don't understand how you push a story for more than 6 months that is based on someone who is a proven one-time mental patient making absolutely out-of-this-world claims. For those, just for the benefit, I'm pretty sure everybody's familiar with this person, but for the benefit of anybody not, he's essentially claiming that the United States government is in possession of alien spacecraft or non-human spacecraft and alien or non-human bodies and more, and are back engineering those in secret illegal projects. But so far, after an entire 6 months of this person doing multiple media interviews and News Nation covering him virtually nonstop for 6 months, we're at 196 days and he has not provided any evidence of his claims. I find that more than a little bit problematic. And also very problematic. We're just going to talk for a moment about red flags. Way back in the beginning of this thing, we did a piece on the red flags of David Grusch. But the two biggest ones that you need to know about is that David Grusch has surrounded himself with known UFO grifter scammers who have almost all been caught pushing false narratives, disinformation, misinformation, false information. People who have literally scammed the public using UFOs as a backdrop for their scams, including a TTSA investment scam run by a bunch of people that he is very close to. And I just don't get it. Why is this story continually being pushed for 6 months straight with no evidence whatsoever of his claims? You know, imagine if a so-called whistleblower came out of the United States military or intelligence circles and claimed that the United States government was in possession of unicorns. And he had no evidence that the United States government is in possession of unicorns for 6 months. Would media outlets continue to cover his story for 6 months straight if he had no evidence of said unicorns? Of course not. But somehow, since the story involves UFOs and aliens, and that's clickbait gold right now, all of these media outlets, including News Nation, we've had a big Joe Rogan interview. How many million views did that get? Now we've got Tucker Carlson, 5.5 million monetized views on Twitter. Now, I'm not monetized on Twitter myself, so I'm really not familiar. You know, I don't even know how to calculate how much is 5.5 million monetized views on Twitter worth. I'm not quite sure. Somebody feel free to email me if you're a little more familiar with that situation. It's just fascinating to me that this story can keep going with no evidence of the stories being, you know, having evidentiary support. Again, imagine if somebody pushed the story of unicorns in possession of the United States government. And, you know, one of the huge red flags is I've never in human history seen a so-called whistleblower wait 6 months to provide evidence of his claims. Not only that, but just take a pass when getting huge media interviews. If you know you're getting interviewed by Joe Rogan, that's the time to drop your evidence. Of course, if you know you're testifying before Congress under oath, that would be another time to drop your evidence. And then we get the Tucker Carlson interview, 5.5 million monetized Twitter views, and still no evidence. But we're going to get into that. But before we do, you know, I think it's important that we recognize another red flag is that almost all the people pushing this Grusch story have all been caught selling completely and totally fake stories before, most notably Ross Coulthart. So if we couple the lack of evidence along with who all of his friends are, his boss is even someone who's been involved in UFO, I can only call them UFO scams. His boss at the Soul Foundation, Gary Nolan, has been involved in provably fake UFO and alien stories, both of which made a lot of money. These are red flags, and anybody can, you know, pretend that, you know, he's telling the truth or pretend it's classified. You know, I hate to keep repeating myself, but DOPSR cleared him. That's the Department of Pre-Publication at the Pentagon, cleared him to talk about alien bodies, alien crash retrievals, and alien spaceships. Therefore, that's not classified. If it was, they wouldn't allow him to even talk about it in general terms. But what we get from the, disclosure dork bros is, oh no, the information is classified, or he gave it to this person, or he gave it to that person. Okay, language is important. Then going forward, I will say 196 days, and he still has not shown any evidence publicly. Is that better? It still doesn't excuse the fact that he showed absolutely no evidence for 6 months straight now. And we also have to remember that a huge red flag is that hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars is being generated with this guy telling stories, and there's no evidence. Is it too much to ask that he prove his out of this world claims? I don't think so. That old saying really does apply, that extraordinary claims require extraordinary proof. And not only does David Grusch have no proof, he doesn't have extraordinary proof. He has no proof. That's a problem. And it's going to continue to be a problem as we continue our countdown. And I will again renew my question to the true believers, which, I get it. You really want to believe it. And if you are a true believer, along comes this guy Grusch out of the government, who seems to confirm everything that UFO people already believed. That the government has recovered alien spacecraft, that the government maybe even has alien bodies recovered from some of those crashes, that the government is trying to back engineer that alien technology. This is all things that were included in UFO stories and UFO mythology, at least since the 70s, maybe longer. And along comes Grusch, and hey, I have high-ranking credentials, and I'm going to confirm that everything you thought about UFOs and aliens, everything you heard, it's all true. Great. Can we see the evidence it's all true? Well, no, I don't have any evidence. But how does this guy with no evidence get on all of these, shows? How do you get an entire news network, News Nation, to cover you nonstop for 6 months when you have no evidence and no proof whatsoever of your claims so far? And I think that this whole story is going to come spectacularly crashing down. But before it does, more money. There's more money to be made. There's more cashing in that's going to happen here before we get to the evidence that he claims that he's already in possession of. And another red flag is that essentially he's claiming 40 anonymous sources. He doesn't have to name any of them. Oh, he's protecting those sources. Or do they not exist? Or are those 40 sources, as myself and many commentators and critics of his has suggested, are those 40 people all UFO wackadoos like his boss, Gary Nolan, like his buddy, Lou Elizondo, who lied to the New York Times about running a Pentagon UFO program that he never ran? And by the way, one of the ways that that David Grusch is not honest is that he's co-signing the lie that Lou Elizondo told. Oh, yeah, there's this guy, and he's running a Pentagon UFO program. No, David Grusch, he never ran a Pentagon UFO program. And the fact that you're co-signing for a proven liar who lied to the New York Times in 2017 about that shows that you're not being honest with the public. If you were, you would accept that Lou Elizondo lied to the New York Times. But you see, according to Brian Bender, Lou Elizondo, who did the same shuffle for 5 years, doing all these interviews, never providing evidence of any of his claims for 5 years, they're buddies. And according to Brian Bender, Lou Elizondo groomed this David Grusch for his role as a so-called UFO whistleblower. And again, I think the use of the term whistleblower is a joke. We just saw the use of the term whistleblower with a known proven UFO scammer from Ross Coulthard who got caught scamming people on eBay and lying about a patch as his proof for his alien stories. They're calling him a whistleblower now. Apparently, even if you're a proven on the record scammer, there's literally eBay screenshots of that guy lying and scamming people. He's a whistleblower now. So's Dave Grusch. Even though Dave Grusch has provided zero evidence for 6 months of any of his claims, he's a whistleblower. Of course, the use of the term whistleblower is also being applied to this Ross Coulthard liar scammer, eBay scammer. He was trying to scam people out of $1 million for some rare patch he claimed was from an alien crash retrieval program. No, it wasn't. So he scammed people on eBay. The UFO people call him a UFO whistleblower. Dave Grusch is a UFO whistleblower. No, whistleblowers, first of all, they have evidence. They don't just make claims. There's a huge difference between a whistleblower and a storyteller. But here we are. You know, it just goes to show you that it doesn't take much to fool the public to the point where that all of these people can make hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. Now, I want to talk for a moment about the pay situation with David Grusch. People say, oh, he's not making any money from these interviews. Then he's an idiot. Then he's a useful idiot for all of these profiteers that are rushing in to make money from him. If all of them are making hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, where's his cut? And by the way, I just want to take a moment and talk to Mr. Grusch's wife. How does you're a married man. How does your wife feel about the fact that there have been verifiably hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars generated from your interviews if you're not taking any money? How does your wife feel about that? Does she feel you're getting taken advantage of? Because I don't know. I'm a married man, and I can just relate it to my own life and my own wife and my own experience. And if my wife knew that people were making hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars off of me and weren't giving me any of the money, she would be upset. And she would say, these people are using you, Stephen. Where's Dave Grusch's wife to say, these people are using you, David? And by the way, we don't know if he's making any money off these interviews because no one has dared ask him in any of these interviews how much money has he made in the past 6 months. But what we do know is that Dave Grusch, shortly before he became a whistleblower, got a documentary film deal. We were the first to report that. We also know that Dave Grusch shuttered his real estate and notary public business in the state he lived in right before he became a public figure. So if he shut down his business and he's not making any money from all these interviews, then what is his source of revenue? His lights are still on. He's able to, exist. He's obviously still eating, right? So I'm assuming he has some kind of an income. It's important that we get to the bottom of how much money Dave Grusch has made in the past 6 months. Because in either scenario, let's say the first scenario is correct, he's not making any money, then he's being taken advantage of by all these people that are making hundreds of thousands of dollars off of him. And if he is making money and people are running around on Twitter, most of them brand new nameless, faceless sock puppet accounts, that's another strange part to this whole story. Why is there always sock puppet accounts, fake nameless Twitter accounts defending these UFO grifts and scams? We've seen it. I've seen it since at least 2017. There was a time where if you were critical of TTSA or Lou Elizondo, 100 sock puppet accounts would descend on your Twitter thread and tell you how wrong you were and how these people are American heroes. Same stuff is happening with Grusch. In some cases, same accounts. I checked. So were the people running the Elizondo sock puppet accounts, are they now running the Dave Grusch sock puppet defender accounts? And is David Grusch using Twitter sock puppet accounts? Some people say he is, and a very well-known sock puppet account. And we're going to get to the bottom of that too, Mr. Grusch. So we're just going to get into the interview. It's about an hour long, but in it, well, actually, before we get to the actual interview, I have something. I don't want to glance over this or, not cover this part of this interview, because the most important part of the interview, I recognized it, so did a few other researchers. The most important part of this interview is that David Grusch essentially made some stunning admissions. And as much as I am annoyed by the fact that David Grusch continues to do interviews where he provides no evidence, I want him to do 100 more interviews. Because every time this guy does an interview, he lets something slip that he probably shouldn't. I noticed it. Other researchers, including Aerotech Research on Twitter or X, noticed it. We're going to talk about this. David Grusch went into a little more detail about his troubles with his security clearance and even states he was the subject of a criminal investigation. David Grusch has often stated that he left his previous employer, the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, with his TS-SCI top secret sensitive compartmentalized information security clearance intact, or at least able to reapply for. The problem is, in this interview, he goes into a little more detail about his troubles and potentially highlights why he resigned from the NGA. When you have an active TS-SCI clearance or even apply for one, you are subject to a very thorough and ongoing background check. The government will backtrack your entire history to see if there's any reason why you would not be trusted with information of national security, or if you could be compromised to efforts to blackmail sensitive national security information out of you. This includes financial history, criminal history, drug use, mental health issues, social media posts, foreign contacts, relationships, work histories, etc. In this interview, he states that 3 agencies at once try to dig up anything they could find on me. They try to use mental health issues I reported in the past. He goes on to later claim that Ken Klippenstein from the Intercept wrote a hit piece about him after being verbally tipped off about an incident involving local law enforcement responding to Grusch's residence while he was drunk and threatening suicide. This wasn't a hit piece as much as it was highlighting one of the several issues Grusch has had that pertains to his security clearance. And that information matters, especially if it might not have been disclosed to keep his clearance like he claims, which is possible. If an agency conducting background investigations suspects you have lied or deceived them, they will further investigate and turn over as many stones as possible to get to the truth of what happened. If Grusch had misled them, they would have dug into his background, like he states, and his so-called harassment he claims his wife and him went through, which led to ICIG reprisals complaint. But then he goes on to admit that he was under a criminal investigation for 4 months and wasn't told why. One could speculate multiple reasons, like Jeremy Corbell stating Grusch had time clock issues at the Pentagon, which he never worked at the Pentagon, which according to Grusch's resume would have been his time at Blue Sky Innovators, which was created from DARPA and is about a 23-minute drive from their office to the Pentagon. Time clock issues would be theft of time at a federal agency. This is not confirmed. Or he could have leaked sensitive classified information about SAPs, special access projects, which he would also have had access to at Blue Sky as he was their corporate security officer to the UAPTF that he claimed to work for at that time. But he then goes on to state that he was denied a FOIA access due to potentially compromising a law enforcement investigation. Now, everybody's arguing over this. They do not deny FOIA requests for information and cite an ongoing law enforcement investigation unless that investigation is ongoing. So this interview left me with more questions than answers. Does this mean that Mr. Grusch is currently under criminal investigation? And if so, why? I think these are important issues. And one of the important issues that we need to be sure that we recognize and understand is that somebody was leaking information to Jeremy Corbell from classified UAP briefings. The timelines certainly match up. And I will renew my question once again. Dave Grusch, did you leak any sensitive or classified information to Jeremy Corbell or George Knapp? And if so, were you the subject of an investigation about those leaks? And by the way, I have been busily working in the background here trying to get some answers from the United States government and the Pentagon about this specific issue. Here's a fact. Somebody leaked still images from a classified briefing about UAP to Jeremy Corbell. That was from a classified briefing. In other words, that wasn't information that Jeremy Corbell should have had in his possession or ever published because it was from a classified briefing. At the time, Dave Grusch was palling around with Jeremy Corbell at Star Trek and UFO conventions. And right around that time that he was palling around with Jeremy Corbell starts leaking potentially sensitive or classified information from UAP classified briefings. Then all of a sudden, Dave Grusch starts getting under investigation, and he claims he was, they were retaliating against him. Or could it simply be that Dave Grusch was the source of Jeremy Corbell's leaks? Because isn't it interesting that once Dave Grusch went public, there were no more leaks like that from Jeremy Corbell? I find that a little suspicious, and I think that the government should have to answer some questions. Like, was Dave Grusch ever under investigation? Is Jeremy Corbell under investigation for leaking sensitive or classified information from classified briefings? And perhaps the reprisals that Grusch is claiming in his IG complaint is a normal investigatory process that happens when you're hanging out with people that are leaking classified information and you yourself have access to the same classified information. But let's play this clip before we get into the major interview, just so we're sure that we cover it.
But when I started getting attacked on the inside and the reprisals started happening for 3 years,
By the way, this is fair use. This is transformative work. We're educating the public. Let me get a better background going here. I apologize. And then we're going to get a better, I have to get the fair use banner going. I don't know if Tucker Carlson is one of those guys that loves to, some of these guys love to copyright claim. But lawyer letters are standing by. This is a transformative work. We're perfectly within our rights to use this. Because we're educating the public with it, and we are critiquing the video that we are sharing. And by the way, I just want to thank Aerotech Research for the excellent write-up. He's noticing some of the same things I am.
I knew I was over the target, so to speak. You take fire when you're over the target, as we say in the Air Force. And it just got so crazy. I had 3 agencies investigate me at the same time. Somehow...
Which ones?
Don't want to say, because there's an ongoing reprisal investigation on my behalf by the Inspector General to look in.
Yeah, by the way, does anybody with an intelligence background know how long does an ICIG investigation take? And when are we going to get some answers from the government about all the claims that this guy is making? Like, are we going to let him and his friends make literally millions of dollars before we find out that it's all bullshit? Maybe he was leaking. In a previous interview, he claimed that he was accused of mishandling classified information, but then he caught himself and shut up, and he didn't continue with that line of speech. So how long is the ICIG going to take on this investigation, and when are we going to get answers
into all this that's going on? So I don't want to compromise that investigation by saying too many details, but I was investigated by 3 agencies at once. They tried to dig up anything they could find on me. They tried to use mental health issues I reported in my past. I've been in Afghanistan. I got PTSD. I have a VA disability rating because of that.
By the way, Dave Grusch wants the government to have transparency. He has at various times claimed that he had PTSD. The first time he claimed he had PTSD, it was from a friend of his killing themselves. And one could argue whether you get PTSD from that. I'm not going to argue that point. But I will say this, it's extremely suspicious that first he said he got PTSD from a friend killing themselves. Then he said, I was in Afghanistan. And I'm sorry, but I'm going to say it again. Intelligence officers rarely see real combat in a combat situation. They're behind enemy lines. He claims he was through the wire or whatever the term is. Then great. Show us your detailed military records to show us what battles in Afghanistan you were in that caused you to have suffer PTSD. You want the government to be transparent. Why don't you be transparent? And while you're at it, why don't you release the Dobser report, the Dobser paperwork? He's well within his rights to release that paperwork. He has so far refused to do it. He's well within his rights to release his detailed military records. He has so far not done it or refused to do it. If you're going to claim I was in battles in Afghanistan and there I suffered PTSD, then show us what battles you were in Afghanistan. He's previously been caught lying, claiming that people did illegal things to gain the information about him spending time in a mental institution. That was completely and totally false. People filed legal FOIA requests. No one did anything illegal to get that information. No one did, but he has claimed that that was illegal, releasing his medical information. No, it was legally obtained information from a Freedom of Information Act request at a local police jurisdiction.
A friend that blew up. I had a friend that had killed himself. And, you know, that impacted me when I was a younger guy in my 20s.
So now he's got a friend that blew up. Can we have his name? Can we verify that part of your story? Here's the problem with these people that want government transparency. They want everybody else to provide transparency, but they won't provide transparency. Who was your friend who killed themselves? Can we have his name? Who was your friend that got blew up? Can we have that name? What battles were you in Afghanistan so that we can verify your, PTSD stories? Can we at least verify that much?
But I got help. No problem. I maintained my clearance, but they dug up stuff from almost a decade ago saying, oh, he has, ongoing issues, that kind of thing. And certainly was not the case. I was taking care of myself. I have high functioning autism and,
And again, there's this plot device here that I think is designed to make people feel sorry for him so that he can avoid scrutiny. You're going on the biggest media platforms on planet Earth claiming all these things with zero evidence for 6 months now. You deserve the scrutiny that you're getting. And if you think this is bad, just wait until the government starts chiming in and answering some of your allegations and maybe refuting some of your wackadoo claims, right? It's kind of ridiculous. Everybody's supposed to be transparent except him.
And I had to learn how to manage my emotions.
Yeah, so I have autism, I have PTSD, feel sorry for me, don't scrutinize me, don't ask for proof or evidence of my claims, feel sorry for me. And by the way, I have an autistic son, a nonverbal, severely autistic son who's most would say completely and totally handicapped. He requires 24/7 full-time care that we provide here in our home. But the fact remains, and then people are going to say, oh, you don't have any sympathy for his autism. I have an autistic son. My son doesn't get a pass due to autism. He doesn't get a pass to go making up false stories with no evidence for 6 months, helping a whole bunch of people make hundreds of thousands of dollars from a false narrative with no evidence. You don't get a pass because you're autistic.
And got help, maintained my clearance. So when that didn't work, they just made up stuff.
So he's claiming, these are serious claims. He's claiming that the government just manufactured evidence or manufactured, manufactured crimes of his. Those are pretty serious allegations to make with no evidence or no proof. But of course, he has an out. Oh, there's an ongoing investigation. I can't talk about any of this.
And it turns out, I found out after the fact, I was under criminal investigation for 4 months. I was never interviewed. I didn't even know what it was about. But then I found out afterwards when they, tried to use that to revoke my clearance. Now, mind you, I have a good attorney, the former inspector general, and, we litigated that, we rebutted that, and, everything I was cleared of any wrongdoing. I maintained my clearance.
And again, he maintained his clearance. There's a lot of confusion about whether he had clearance, maintained his clearance. Can he get his clearance back? No, he can't.
I resigned from NGA with my clearance eligibility intact. But I even FOIA'd that agency who put me under.
He resigned with his clearance, ability to get clearance again intact, but he can't be cleared to talk in a skiff. Therefore, that is likely a false statement. If he resigned with his ability to get clearance restored intact, they would have let him in a skiff. They would have restored his clearance. They didn't do that. Why is that? Maybe, just maybe, we're not getting the full truth of this man about these sequence of events.
A criminal investigation, and I got a denial of my whole file, citing something called like a B7 alpha FOIA exemption, which means it could compromise a law enforcement investigation. But they wouldn't even give me anything, not even redacted papers. They just gave me a denial letter. And I'm like, Okay, so you said I did something bad, which
And by the way, a FOIA exemption is that they will exempt something from FOIA if there's an ongoing criminal investigation. So at least at the time that he filed the FOIA, the criminal investigation was likely ongoing, I would think, or they wouldn't be legally able to use that FOIA exemption. So what was he under criminal investigation for? More questions than answers here.
wasn't even true. You never interviewed me, and you were trying to use that information to fire me. That's crazy. And luckily, there is an open investigation to look at this kind of wrongdoing, and that's one of the reasons I went public. I'm a patriot. I shouldn't be treated like this.
He's a patriot. He shouldn't be treated like this. He's hanging out with Jeremy Corbell, who is actively leaking information from classified briefings. And he shouldn't be investigated. He shouldn't be treated like this. Well, if there is a garbage peddler on the internet who is leaking potentially classified information to the public, and you're hanging out with them and you have access to that information, it's not a huge leap to say that the United States government may investigate you to see if you may be the source of who that person is getting the leaks from. And by the way, there's only a few people that could be, right? So again, I will renew my questions to Jeremy Corbell, George Knapp, and Dave Grusch. Who was the source of the potentially sensitive or classified information that you were leaking to the public, most likely illegally? Who gave you that, Jeremy Corbell? Which was leaked and hyped up right at the same time that these people met and were hanging out at Star Trek and UFO conventions. Really, this whole thing stinks to high heaven. But what are you going to do? So we'll start over here at the beginning, and then we'll skip that part. I just want to make sure that we see that on the record here, Mr. Grusch is making a lot of claims and admitting he was under criminal investigation. Is the criminal investigation still ongoing? Again, we have more questions than answers. And by the way, one of the other interesting things that happened this weekend is apparently Dave Grusch asked to have an off-the-record conversation with Dark Journalist, another content creator you may be familiar with, who extensively covers UFOs and some of the same topics we cover here. And isn't it interesting? Dark Journalist wouldn't really, since it was an off-the-record conversation that he agreed to, wouldn't really divulge what Grusch said, but he did divulge that he told Grusch, if you're on the level, here's some advice. Don't hang out with all these UFO grifters that have all been caught lying to the public before. All of the people surrounding him, Lou Elizondo, Gary Nolan, Ross Coulthart, all of them have been deceiving the public with false narratives, false information, fake stories about UFOs and aliens, and Grusch is right there in the middle of them. George Knapp, Jeremy Corbell, everybody surrounding him have all been caught pushing completely and totally fake alien stories before, or almost all of them. So Dark Journalist, to his credit, said, maybe shouldn't be hanging out with known UFO scammer grifters. He didn't use that term. I'm using that term. And by the way, hearing Dark Journalist describe that conversation, I feel even more strongly that Dave Grusch is what Joe Rogan's claimed him to be, a useful idiot who's being used by this UFO grift squad, most of which have all been caught pushing completely and totally fake alien and UFO stories before this one. Maybe he's being used by all of these people. And again, I want to specifically talk to Dave Grusch's wife. I'd love to have a phone conversation with her. Does Dave Grusch's wife know that hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars have been generated from his interviews so far? And how much of that money was given to Dave Grusch? Is it 50-50? Did he get a 10%, 20%? And if those people all are not giving him any money, isn't it clear that he's being used by them? I would think that it would be crystal clear if he's not receiving any money from all these people generating hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars from his interviews. If they're not giving him any money, it's clear he's being used. They're milking every penny they can out of his story and not giving him any money, if you believe Dave Grusch's supporters, many of which have come to me and claimed, you're totally wrong, Stephen. He hasn't made any money. Well, people told me Bob Lazar hasn't made any money either. How did that work out? We proved that Bob Lazar tried to cash in every chance he got. So to Dave Grusch's wife, I would say, if your husband is stupid enough to let himself be used, you are letting people take advantage of your husband. And I don't know about Dave Grusch's wife and what level of influence she has on Dave Grusch, but I know in my own marriage, my wife would not allow people to use me and generate hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars and not cut me in on the money. She just wouldn't allow it. You know, she would tell me to cut my ties with those people. They're using you. So where's Dave Grusch's wife at? And by the way, for anybody that's, oh, it's not fair, his wife isn't a part of this. I'm just being human here. And I know in my own personal life, anytime that I was being used by anybody, my wife would step in and say, that's not going to happen. You can't let these people use you. They're taking advantage of you. And for the stupid people, I see one of them in the live chat, anybody can add up the YouTube monetized views and get a general ballpark that I am correct. When I say hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars have been generated from Dave Grusch's stories, the evidence is public record. Anybody can add up all those monetized views and do some estimation. You know, it does vary depending on people's CPM rate or whatever, but there's a general guideline you can use. Look it up. And if you're too dumb to do first grade math and add up those monetized views and do third grade math, first grade math to figure out that I'm correct, you can argue with me all you want, but first go learn to do first grade math. Add up the millions and millions of monetized views on the internet, YouTube and all over everywhere else. Now we've got 5.5 million monetized views on exclusive monetized views on Twitter with this Dave Grusch interview. Anybody can add that up and see that I'm correct. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars have been generated. And so far, zero evidence. The fact that they could generate hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars of monetized views with no evidence whatsoever supporting the claims, it makes me sad for the whole system here. The system is corrupt. You shouldn't be able to generate hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars from a sensational clickbait garbage story that has no evidence for 6 months. But here we are. This is where we find ourselves. And again, if you're, I'm not going to argue with dumb dickheads. If you're an idiot and you can't do first grade math to see that I'm correct, the views are public. Go add them up and then get your calculator out if you're too dumb to do first grade math, and you'll know that I'm correct. We're likely almost into the millions of dollars generated from this story so far. News Nation has been covering it nonstop for 6 months now. What do they do? Like 3-4 videos a day about this, right? Or at least 3-4 videos a week for 6 months, all getting hundreds of thousands or millions of views. I'm correct. Hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars of monetized views have been generated from this story. And if you don't see that, you, sir, are blind or just a dumb dickhead and an idiot. And I'm sorry, but I don't have the patience. I don't have time to argue with people that can't do first grade math. You want to argue with me, go do the first grade math, then come back to me. So we'll get into the interview. And isn't it interesting that all the UFO bros are telling everybody, forget about, Tucker Carlson and anything to do with him. This is helpful for disclosure. Sure it is. 5.5 million views. Tucker made a great deal of money from this interview, I would imagine. But hey, forget all your ideals and how disclosure is only supposed to come from Democrats. Hey, Tucker Carlson's helping disclosure. Sure he
Human
is.
beings have recorded seeing strange moving lights in the sky since, well, the beginning of known history. record goes back thousands of years. What is that? We don't know. In the United States, people have been talking a lot about these strange lights, UFOs, since the Second World War, when military pilots recorded seeing things they called Foo Fighters
I don't know what happened to the bow ties.
out their cockpit windows. They had no idea what they were. For the last 80 years, it seems like there has been a continuous increase in the sightings of these things, these UFOs or UAPs. And there's a whole industry that has grown up around describing what they are or may be. But it wasn't until very recently, in the last 18 months, that former government officials began
Show us the math
in public
Yeah.
to say,
Here's one of those idiots right now.
direct firsthand knowledge of the government's interactions with these objects or vehicles.
You're a YouTuber. Do you know how to look up CPM? Go look up what your CPM is. Go look here. We'll make this a teachable moment for this idiot. You're supposed to be a scientist, you idiot. You can't do first grade math, you dummy. Here, let me explain it to you because you're a little bit stupid and you need some help, idiot. So I'll explain it to you. Okay? We'll explain to you how you get to that number since you're too stupid to figure this out on your own. You're a YouTuber. Go look up your CPM rate. That'll tell you how much money you get paid per 1,000 monetized views. And just take your CPM as an example. Say it's $8 per 1,000 monetized views. Then go on over to News Nation. Add up all the hundreds of thousands of views that they have. And then for every 1,000 views, times it by whatever your CPM rate says you get paid per 1,000 monetized views. Then you'll have an estimation of just how much money these people are making, right? But why should I expect you, an idiot who believes Stephen Greer's a great source of information, to be able to do first grade math? Since you're a fan of his, you must be extremely stupid. But there you go. That's how you do it. Go add up, right? And you got to go $8 divided by 1 million views. $8 per 1,000 monetized views. But there's millions and millions and millions of monetized views been generated so far with Grusch. I am correct in that. Prove me wrong, stupid. I'll wait, you idiot. All right. By the way, the same clown that thinks Greer is a great source of information also thinks Tony Rodriguez knows how spaceships engines work, right? He's going to blow himself up.
Vehicles or people or whatever they are. One such person who has come forward recently is a longtime military intelligence officer, an Air Force major called Dave Grusch. He's made a number of very interesting claims in public, including at congressional hearings. For example, here he is telling the Congress that, in fact, the U.S. government has retrieved bodies, or as he puts it, biologics.
You can't do first grade math then.
Watch.
I didn't
Do you
say
believe that officials at the highest levels of our national security apparatus have
add up News Nation, add up Ross Coulthard, add up Jeremy Corbell, add up George Knapp.
There are certain
add it all up.
elected
Everyone
leaders that have
covering
more
Grusch
information
positively.
I'm not
Add
sure
it
what
all
they've
up.
shared with certain
Stupid.
members,
I'll wait.
But certainly,
You're supposed to be a scientist. Can you do first grade
I'd
math,
not be
you
surprised.
fucking idiot?
You've stated that the government is in possession of potentially non-human spacecraft. Based on your experience and extensive conversations with experts, do you believe our government has made contact with intelligent extraterrestrials?
Exactly. You can always get an estimate.
something I can't discuss in public setting.
Okay, I can't ask when you think this occurred. If you believe we have crashed craft, stated earlier, do we have the bodies of the pilots who piloted this craft?
As I've stated publicly already in my
Prove
News
it.
Nation
Prove me
interview,
wrong.
biologics
Prove me wrong,
came from some
dummy.
of these
Prove me
professors.
wrong, you dummy. Prove it. Prove I'm wrong, you dummy.
Non-human biologics.
Non-human, and that was the assessment of people with direct knowledge on the program I talked to that are currently still.
You
in the
are
program.
correct. Unacceptable
And was
views.
this
He gets extra
documentary evidence,
compensation.
video, photos?
Hard to say what that number is.
Eyewitness, like how would that be determined?
The specific documentation I would have to talk to you in a skiff about.
SCIF being a secure location where the highest classified intelligence can be discussed.
No, you
among
didn't.
people
You
who
didn't
have
prove me
permission
wrong,
to hear it.
and you never will,
Dave Grusch is the man
because
you saw in that
you're
video he
an
posted. Yeah,
idiot.
thanks so much.
You don't have the gray
So before
matter
you
to
get
do
into
science, you
fleshing out some of
dummy,
what
and nothing in your
you
lab
do,
works, you idiot.
Tell us about your background. Who are you? Where are you from? What have you spent your life doing?
Yeah, I spent my entire life growing up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Son of very normal income.
Oh, I never knew we grew up in Pittsburgh. That's
Spent
interesting.
most of my youth playing basketball.
Yeah, I'm a bad
tennis,
example.
and
I
ended
shouldn't
up
be
going to the
attacking anybody, but
University of
at some
Pittsburgh,
point you just say,
where
like, I'm not going to argue
went
with
into Air
stupid
Force
people.
ROTC. I had a full scholarship in physics at the time.
I have
And,
zero evidence.
Yeah,
Sure, I
born and bred
do.
in Pittsburgh, and then once I graduated Pitt, and
I have as much evidence as you have that space grifters know how anti-gravity works, you asshole. Why don't you go build Mark McCandless bullshit some more? Waste some more of your life, you fucking retard.
I'm a government civilian at the
Pardon the use of the R word, but in this case, that applies to that guy.
Enough to be
He is so stupid, that guy.
level, which is equivalent to like a full bird colonel civilian.
National Geospatial on MacArthur Boulevard in DC.
No, I'll
it's
do
in
it.
Springfield, Virginia.
Oh, it is.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
they moved
for Bevoir.
Right. What is that, by the way?
So that agency collects all imagery, other types of visual intelligence to make fused products called geospatial intelligence.
See you later,
products.
space
So think
grifter.
about
You go
the
figure
National
out. You go
Reconnaissance
figure
Office,
out how to do
Right.
first
flies
grade
the
math.
bus, so to speak. They
I'll
fly the
wait for your
satellites.
proof that I'm
The National
wrong
Geospatial
on my
Intelligence
estimate.
Agency processes that intelligence.
Okay, so
derived.
if there's stuff floating above the earth, it's their job to know about it, I assume.
Process the intelligence coming off, satellites flying around the earth. Yes.
Huh.
I don't know what that means.
so you spent
Deflation tactics.
Over 14 years in this world.
Yes.
And then suddenly the rest of us encounter you in public saying that the U.S. government
Yeah, I
has
dealt with it, Arden.
very
Thank you.
detailed knowledge of what these things are and has for a long time.
Yeah, I had no personal.
I'm not going to
interest.
and just to be clear, this guy has been attacking me. In fact, I just emailed somebody about him. This guy has been attacking me, calling me a scammer and a grifter for a month straight now. So let's just be clear. I didn't go 0 to 60. And by the way, he would be free to come here and debate me on the space grifters, right? And for people that don't know, what that guy does is he listens to UFO scammers about how anti-gravity works, and then he tries to make it in his lab. Guess how many things worked so far in his lab? Nothing, right? But what really set him off is my coverage of Stephen Greer, because he loves to lick Stephen Greer's butthole and sucks up to that guy, right? And so that set him off, and then suddenly I was a bad person. Until then, he was fine with me, right? That's what happens. You hit one of their UFO celebrity heroes and prove they're a scammer, and they get angry at me, like it's my fault that they got scammed. No, I'm the person showing you that you're getting scammed. You should thank me, you dummy. Yeah. Falcon Space believed the Ashton Ford grips. All you need to know about him. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Let me try to get back into this and focus. I apologize.
In the UFO subject, really, certainly I, grew up and I saw stuff on the History Channel, that kind of thing. But
I do apologize for the use of the R word. I shouldn't have used that word, and I apologize for that.
Having studied physics, became an intel officer, I was very agnostic about the subject, and I was in a position of extreme trust. I handled the presidential daily brief for my agency's director at the National Reconnaissance Office when I was an Air Force Reserve officer.
Yeah, this is another UFO talking point. Oh, he handled briefings for the president. Okay. I don't.
Widely clear.
That has to be looked into.
Black programs in the Department of Defense.
What's a black program?
Special access program, right? And I figured kind of that I would know if that kind of program exists. It was kind of a joke between myself and other colleagues over the years, like, haha, when are we going to get read into the UFO stuff? And we thought that it was a total joke, but it wasn't until
here's where he's going to co-sign Lou Elizondo's lies of running a Pentagon UFO program, which is 100% false, fake information.
I saw the New York Times article in 2017, and
the New York Times article, which was completely and totally factually wrong, by the way.
What was that article?
So that was a story about Lou Elizondo and other individuals that ran the ATIP program and the OSAP program. So Advanced Aerospace Weapons.
No, the OSAP program was a real funded Pentagon program. ATIP was not a real funded Pentagon program.
And systems applications.
To be clear, I think the government has never admitted that he was, or denied, in fact, that Elizondo was involved in that.
No, he certainly was.
No, he never had any assigned responsibilities around UFOs in the Pentagon, just for the benefit of both Tucker Carlson and Dave Grusch, who appear to be perfectly fine with co-signing a liar who lied to the New York Times and then used those lies to solicit public investment for a UFO company in the form of TTSA, right? Facts matter. And the facts bear out that Lou Elizondo had no assigned responsibilities surrounding UFOs for the Pentagon. He was a real estate guy for the Pentagon. That's what his real job was, looking at office space.
I remember in a very senior official's office in McLean, briefing that senior official into about a couple hundred special access programs, because at the time I was a trusted individual advising the Joint Chiefs on certain Black programs. And I remember that individual who was a coworker of, Lou Elizondo mentioned, oh, there's this guy named Lou Elizondo over at the Pentagon. He's running some UFO program. We think he lost his mind. He's giving the Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence a hard time. And this was 6 months prior to that Leslie.
You could be right, Simon
Ralph
Fly.
Blumenthal article in December 2017. And I was like, I don't know.
He's just going to take the money and run then.
He sounds crazy to me because I don't know about some UFO program. But little did I know, about 6 or 7 months after that, I saw that on the news. And that's what caught my attention, because I'm like, I heard about this guy. Didn't realize that program was for real. And it turns out it was.
No, the program wasn't for real. And Lou Elizondo himself had to admit that it wasn't a program. It was an activity he did in his spare time. It wasn't a funded program. So here we have a high-ranking military and intelligence official repeating proven lies. Doesn't look good for Dave Grusch to be repeating proven lies.
And then I spent a year kind of just...
By the way, Dave Grusch, do you know that millions of dollars were taken from the American public based on those lies, and TTSA did nothing they promised? And one of the lies they told while they were soliciting public investment was that Lou Elizondo ran a Pentagon UFO program. Turns out that wasn't true. And you may be aware that it's illegal to solicit public investment while lying to investors. So
just doing like an open source lit review. And then in early 2019, just by happenstance, my boss forwarded me an email from the UAP task force director asking, hey, we need a rep from the NRO to help the task force. You got anybody? And, my boss knew I was a reservist and I was looking for something to do to put on my performance report. And of course I said yes. So, cause I figured I'd figure out if it was
working on med beds,
like natural phenomenon,
right?
If it's a blue US program that people are seeing that, people think is a UFO, but it's not, or it's maybe some adversarial program that maybe our intelligence community missed in
this is a terrible interview.
Yeah,
he didn't ask any
all fair guesses.
Yeah, I went improving a negative.
You just let him talk for an
I
hour.
was open to the idea of non-human intelligence because as a guy who got his bachelor's in physics,
wackadoo.
Drake equation calculates the number of
with a UFO organization. He's trying to get funding
in the Milky Way based on certain factors, and people can Google that and play around with it. So I was open to it, but I didn't think that was going to be the answer.
So you were detailed to this.
I was. It was my official duty as an Air Force officer, and then eventually, when NGA hired me as a government civilian, the UAP portfolio came to myself.
I'd like to see that
in our agency to support the UAP task force initially. Of course, that office transitioned to the Aero office.
Falcon Space Labs probably working on those.
So you, by this point, worked in the government for a long time.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I mean, if you count my cadet time in uniform, I've been in uniform.
Yeah, and his boss at the time was a UFO wackadoo. Different? So of course he was looking for another wackadoo to send in, right?
I started to uncover, some very disturbing facts. I had people come to me. I had access to the classified archives from those previous UFO programs that Lou Elizondo and others ran. years prior.
Yeah, I don't know.
And
you have to ask him.
I
can't speak
read
for
some
him.
extremely interesting foreign intelligence that was
But thanks for being a
derived by,
member.
clandestine human sources overseas, espousing, and this is something they're noting about the U.S. They're like, yeah, the U.S. has a retrieval program, reverse engineering program, and I'm like, whoa.
This was the
I'm
assessment.
hopeful he would melt
Other
him
countries,
for
yeah, and by the way, I ran all this through DoD security and pre-publication review, mind you. So anything I say in detail, I'm a steward of security. I care about national security, and I would never.
Yeah, he's a big national hero who was under criminal investigation, who admits that he was under investigation for mishandling classified information, who lost apparently, or his security clearance was suspended for hanging out with people who were leaking potentially sensitive or classified information. At least these are all of his claims.
I want to say something publicly that would, hamper national security, just to put that out there. But
yeah.
But
what an interesting way to find out.
Yeah, so
you're reading the assessment
Yeah.
of countries that are spying on us, and we've spied on their assessments of us.
Yes, and
Yeah, and what he's citing here is documents from the internet about foreign governments, the Canadian government. He's citing Wilbert Smith right here, who, let's just be clear, Wilbert Smith worked for the Canadian government for a time till they fired him for being a wackadoo. And Wilbert Smith also claimed to be in telepathic communication with aliens from the planet Venus from his backyard. So this is David Grusch's sources of information. Other UFO wackadoos.
I had a chain of custody on how we got that information. And, I thought maybe, this is passage material. We got to be very careful, which passage material would be like a form of disinformation to try to trick a case officer to develop a, relationship with said asset. So I was like, well, wait a minute. Is this true?
That's a real plot hole, isn't it? Digital Vortex.
Funny that thinks apparently this is true. And, one thing led to another.
Well, hello, Stephen John Savage, and welcome from New Zealand. Glad to see you there with
senior officials,
New Zealand.
both.
I didn't even know anybody in New Zealand watched this, but I'm glad to find out they do.
Of having a relationship with them, and I talked to them about this issue, and they confirmed those details. And what was really interesting in the previous UFO program's records, so the OSAP program, which ran roughly 2008 to 2010 or so, and that was in the Defense Intelligence Agency.
Yeah, sounds impressive. He's mentioning OSAP, but he's leaving out the fact that they wasted $22 million chasing, space ghosts, dino beavers, werewolves, smoking dogmen, and more at Skinwalker Ranch. That's kind of important, but he leaves that detail out. The lie by omission.
And this has been released by FOIA. You can actually go to DIA's website and read this, but the paperwork includes this very odd.
I think you're right, Scallywag.
Senator Harry Reid.
Yeah, if this was a real cover-up, they would have stopped him from talking about any of this shit.
Asking for something called a Provisional Special Access Program, or PSAP. I've never seen in my career a member of Congress ask the Department of Defense to develop a very classified program. And usually it's the reverse, right? Congress wants more transparency and declassification. I'm like, this is very odd. I don't know what's going on here. Why is Harry Reid saying that the OSAP program found something they needed to develop this provisional special access program that is waived and bigoted, which is the most serious of SAPs. Waived means it's limited congressionally reported. Right. That's 10 U.S. Code Section 119.
He just looks confused for most of this interview.
And there was a list of individuals that needed to be briefed. Of course, Senator Reid, Inouye, and a couple, members of
every interview he let something slip.
Wanted to be on it, and so I asked people that both worked on that program, but also people that were tangential to it that worked in certain intelligence agencies. Like, so what was this about? Well, a certain clear defense contractor wanted to transfer some of their material holdings to DIA for our program. It was all crash retrieval material. And this was a way to horizontally protect, as we call it, that information and that physical material from a certain other government program custodian that linked that contract.
And by the way, this whole story that he's telling here is completely and totally false. The real reason why they wanted the OSAP program classified is because they didn't want other people in the government knowing that they wasted $22 million chasing werewolves and space ghosts. One of the best reporters on that whole situation was Stephen Greenstreet of the New York Post. Shout out to Stephen Greenstreet. He uncovered that the whole reason they wanted it classified was because they didn't want people knowing that they wasted $22 million chasing space ghosts, poltergeists, werewolves, dino beavers, and smoking dogmen. It was an embarrassment, and they want it covered up. I believe that. So he's telling a false version of that narrative in that story as well. So far, he's co-signed for Complete and Total Liar, Lou Elizondo. Now he's co-signing for the OSAP program, who wasted $22 million studying werewolves, space ghosts, dino beavers, and more. It's not looking good for him as far as, if you want to believe he's a real information source, why is he getting all of his facts wrong here? Why is he pushing false narratives twice? We're 10 minutes into the interview. 12 minutes into the interview, he's already pushed two completely and totally fake stories.
Material in the past. And I was like, wait, are you saying we have UFO material? That's crazy. Like, are you sure it's UFO material? Like, this isn't like we went and got a wreckage of a Russian bomber and it just happened to be weird or something like that. Smith. And no, they were dead serious. So,
and what was their sort of tone or affect when they said, like, of course, or?
Well, they certainly, I guess they're a little bit jaded, and the reality to them is not shocking. But I was so intrigued by this. Not only did I interview 10 people that were in the meetings that talked to the clear defense contractor, were involved in trying to persuade the government customer to release custodianship to give it ultimately to DIA and Bigelow Aerospace. I actually flew to Las Vegas, and I actually met with Senator Harry Reid himself after he retired. Of course, the former majority leader.
The former majority leader who spearheaded an effort to waste $22 million chasing space ghosts, dino beavers, smoking dogmen, and more. And you gotta love, all of these UFO people love citing dead people, so you can't check in with them.
And I wanted to hear it right from his mouth.
Who had a long time interest in this topic.
Yeah. And, he confirmed that to me. He's like, yes, I was told this clear defense contractor had material. This is the way to get it. And, he told me that he knew that contractor had material for decades. However, the Pentagon has always denied him access to actually go see that.
And this is the long told mythology of UFOs, that the private contractor, most of the people blame Lockheed Martin, have UFO or alien crash material. And that's what Reid apparently was trying to get to. Or perhaps none of that is true. And no, they didn't. And these UFO people take a denial of something as a cover-up instantly.
And he literally told me that in his living room to my face. And he ultimately made that disclosure to the New Yorker.
If I could just ask you to pause.
Yeah.
How could the Pentagon, which has no authority of any kind except to the extent it serves elected officials, that it's not its own country.
Yeah.
They're just employees like your housekeeper. They work for politicians who are elected by the people. How can they deny an elected official access to something?
Yeah, and that's part of why I whistleblowed, right? There's a constitution.
Yeah, but they rarely
Thank you. Exactly.
For that.
So in elected leaders, even in the normal black
I agree,
community, they're treated as second-class citizens. Oh, we're going to waive reporting. I'm DepSecDef. I can sign an order saying we're not going to fully brief certain committees on.
You've seen that?
Oh, that's weird, Mr.
That is in
about
public
that.
law, 10 U.S. Code Section 119, and that is Congressional Oversight of SAPS is the title of that part of public law.
Sounds legit, UFO Shane. Thanks for being a member.
In retrospect, very weird where the legislators authorize and appropriate for these programs, but they're not afforded full access. And occasionally Gang of Eight will get those kind of briefings. But literally,
and this is another diatribe of UFO mythology, that there's these illegal projects. And by the way, do you know who else Dave Grusch keeps repeating the stories of? Stephen Greer. That's all I have to say. there is special access programs that the general members of Congress aren't briefed into, but the Gang of Eight always are, and here he admits that. So the programs are not by definition illegal or without oversight. That's a part of UFO mythology.
It could withhold, besides notifying a program got stood up, the entire Congress that we're doing some kind of clandestine activity.
It's almost unbelievable. I mean, they have no moral authority.
A lot of
to
this
do
is
that,
coming
of
from
course,
Greer's
under the
camp. Yeah.
Constitution.
Yeah, and
And can I just ask, and I don't want to caught up on this because it's the least interesting part, but it is, I think, significant. What about the executive? Do you believe they withheld information?
Yeah, they told him his living
yeah,
room,
it's
so
funny
it
you
must be
asked
true.
that. So the executive was initially involved in the secrecy on the UAP.
Hey, welcome, Tales of the Sonic
topic.
Voyage.
They transposed the Manhattan Project secrecy construct onto this eventually, and then they formed, the Atomic Energy Act. What was McMahon Act of 46, the Atomic Energy Act of 54, and they purposely
That's probably
diluted
because
the
of his
definition of
JFK
special nuclear
stance.
material.
You're
If you
correct.
actually read Section 51 of the Atomic Energy Act of 1954, it says, besides normal nuclear material, we can also protect stuff that is similar, and it's a very broad definition, and that's basically the justification of the secrecy on this topic. Is the material that we recover sometimes does have radioactive properties.
There's zero proof that the same secrecy applied to the Manhattan Project was applied to anything UFO. This is just another theory of UFO wackadoos that never provide proof of that. They just state it as if it's a fact. For those unaware, Grusch has stated that the same secrecy applied to the Manhattan Project was applied to UFOs. There's no proof of that other than that Canadian document from the wackadoo we mentioned earlier, Wilbert Smith, who also communicated telepathically to aliens on Venus. He claimed that the UFO secrets were higher than nuclear secrets. That's where Grusch is getting this from. This whole diatribe comes from a known UFO wackadoo who apparently telepathically communicated with aliens from Venus. But don't let that get in the way of a good story if you can use it as a prover maneuver.
And so where, they legally and gymnastically, twisted the public law to justify the secrecy.
I mean, I have so many questions for you, and I'm getting in the way of your narrative, which is terrific. Thank you. So before I interrupted you, you were saying, so you all of a sudden realized this is real.
Mm-hmm.
And then it sounds like you said you interviewed 10 people. It sounds like you decided to find out as much as you could.
Yeah, we interviewed roughly 40 people, many of which, had firsthand knowledge. Like I said, we were privileged to interview, people at the same kind of level as Harry Reid, for example.
The same kind of level as Harry Reid. That means you interviewed 40 senators? Why can't we get the list of the 40 people you interviewed and then interview them and find out what they told you? All the sources are all anonymous. That's another huge red flag.
And, Harry was just so concerned about this topic. When I left the meeting with him, he said he was going to go talk to President Biden. Him and President Biden had a weekly call.
Exactly.
And this is about
quite a reach when you need to bring in aliens from Venus
certainly
to
his
prove
mind
what
was
you're
sharp,
saying
but,
is
he
true.
was struggling with his health issues.
For sure.
But
nothing says
he was so
credible
concerned about
like
our
citing a guy who
conversation, which was
telepathically
unclassified.
communicated with the
So
aliens
it
from
was
Venus.
But he was going to go talk to the president because he understood that even himself as a Gang of Eight member and the majority leader, for goodness sakes,
Scallywag.
was
Absolutely.
denied access. So
Without
going back
evidence,
to your
all
earlier
of this
question
is
about
just
presidents,
stupid.
Many administrations ago, a lot of the presidents were in the know, right? However, it's vacillated.
He will
over the
eventually,
years where
Steve.
certain
It's
chief
coming.
executives
So is
aren't
the guy at
necessarily
TV
briefed
Grusch
all
show.
aspects of the program. So you have, a commander in chief is also our chief diplomats, and they do need to know if there is a foreign entity, adversary, friend, whatever out there, so they can form foreign policy for the country. But when you are not telling, it's like classifying the existence of Russia. It's like,
but it's also they have no moral authority to do it.
Yeah.
They have no authority to even have their jobs without the authority that comes from the votes of the population through the elected officials. So
that's the issue. You have it's a symptom of the overclassification of this whole secret national security state that was formed in 1947. And they're basically classifying basic physics, basic astrobiology, that kind of stuff.
For those unaware, this because he will he will melt under the pressure of somebody asking real questions. Alien Critter is here and says, Stephen, I asked Alien Addict if their buddy Ashton Forbes would be willing to debate you on MH370 with a non-biased moderator. Neither Alien Addict or Ashton would even respond, just to let you know, and he has not responded to requests to come here for an interview. If your piss poor conspiracy theory is so weak it cannot withstand real questions or debate, that should inform everyone that your whole conspiracy theory is garbage. That's my opinion. I'm entitled to it.
And that's
it is what it is.
Nuclear physics? No, you can study it in a university.
So let's, since I keep interrupting, let's just go to the beginning. Tell us what you know about the genesis of this. I'll start with the most obvious question, which is you said the secrecy surrounding these programs derived from the secrecy surrounding the Manhattan Project.
And again, the idea that the secrecy around UFOs or UFO programs is greater than the secrecy around the Manhattan Project or nuclear or hydrogen bombs, that all comes from Wilbert Smith, the guy who telepathically communicated with aliens from Venus from his backyard and was let go from the Canadian government for being a complete and total wackadoo. So Tucker Carlson is literally repeating talking points from a Canadian UFO wackadoo that communicated with aliens from Venus. Do you see how this all falls apart under scrutiny? And thank you, Zizix, for a kind of generous $2, who says, do any of them blame the movie The Thing? Yeah, I think they do. Well, I haven't heard anybody, but we have heard about shape-shifting aliens before, so it stands to reason that somebody watched the movie The Thing. But thanks for helping us to praise the cash. Good to see you.
Praise the cash, praise the cash, praise the cash.
All right. So now Tucker Carlson and Dave Grusch are both quoting a known UFO wackadoo who said that the UFO secrets are classified higher than nuclear secrets.
Is there any connection between the two?
Not overtly, but certainly during the Manhattan Project.
Well, no, let me be more specific. Do you think that the development of nuclear weapons was derived in any way from technology from these?
No. But I think
that was totally independent.
But I think it might have precipitated interest from,
these objects.
Yes, and everyone in the UFO community for years has had that talking point. What got the aliens so interested in us? Well, there was huge flaps of sightings after the first atomic bomb tests. And even Stanton Friedman, who I was friendly with, used to say, the kids got the matches. He uses the exact phrase from Stanton Friedman. Maybe not in this interview, but he has previously. Oh, the kids found the matches. That's Stanton Friedman's talking point. So for this guy to claim that he's not a ufologist or he's not into UFOs, was never into UFOs, why does he keep quoting famous UFO storylines from UFO land then? And the general talking point, the belief is, the aliens noticed that we harnessed the atomic power and that they knew that we would soon be able to reach nearby star systems. Therefore, they became interested in us. This is a long-held point of UFO mythology, never proven, but it's from UFO mythology. So here, Grusch, again, is just blindly repeating stories from UFO land with no evidence or proof. They weren't proven by Stanton Friedman. God rest Stanton Friedman's soul, by the way. May he rest in peace. But they weren't proven by anybody previous to him, and now he's just going to repeat them and not prove them either.
Yes.
Okay. So the most famous, obviously, Roswell, 1947.
Yeah, I can't talk about many retrievals. The only one I've stated publicly is the 1933 Italian event.
So tell us what that is.
Which is a fake case.
So I picked that event specifically because it was not U.S.-centric, and I wanted to espouse that this is a worldwide problem, not just a U.S.-centric problem. So that was a recovery of an artifact by the Axis powers, Italy and Germany, and Magenta Italy in 1933. Much of that information, ironically, was in the public vernacular starting in the early 2000s. There were certain researchers in Italy that uncovered these documents that
Good job.
Mussolini sent to the
Unacceptable
Gestapo,
views.
or the Italian equivalent
Yeah,
of
I'm
the Gestapo.
disappointed in those guys.
And,
I wish they would have did a better job with
otherwise,
those
however,
interviews. But
that was one
everybody's got their own path.
a recovery that was briefed to me by a senior intelligence officer.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
since it was,
I know he does that all the
90
time.
years
He
ago,
uses the word as espouse,
in
E-X-P-O-U-S-E.
Italy,
Yeah.
I think
It's
we-
not a word. He
we're
means
safe in telling that we
espouse,
know, correct?
E-S-P-O-U-S.
So, like, what happened?
So, they recovered this object.
Oh, no, I
It
keep
looked like an
telling you I
acorn,
will.
And the intelligence
Email
officer
me.
that briefed me.
I'll do it this
and
week.
We'll just say senior officials
Message me.
on Capitol Hill.
I know that case front, back, left, right, and
and,
sideways. I'd be
during
happy to
a
have you
certain
here.
Private session.
Email me at
described how the edges of this-
truthseekershow@gmail.com. Hold
it
on,
was
I'll
like
get
a
it on the
lenticular
screen for you.
disc-looking thing, but the edges broke off when it hit the earth. So it looked like an acorn or like a bell shape when they recovered it. It was just an artifact.
Well, it's the same
They
as the
didn't find anything
PayPal.
with it. And
That's
you know,
my
the
email
Italians took
address. You can
custody of
email
that
me,
towards the
and
end of the
we'll
war,
do a
and then,
show.
you know,
I'll
the
do a show with
Americans
you,
came
but
in
and
recovered it.
you
We
better be
knew
ready
about
for
it
me to
because
that's
it
the
turns
shit,
out the
that whole
Vatican, through
story.
Pius XII and the OSS, they sent a communique back to FDR saying, "Hey, we got something kind of weird that crashed in Italy," and so this
Oh, here it
history
is.
is longer than most people think.
That's my
It is not
address.
those
Email me at that
seminal
email
events
address. I'll
that
check
you
my
may have
spam
mentioned
folder
to
and
me,
everything.
but it actually
I'll
goes
look
back
up
much
yours as
farther. And I
well.
wanted to use 1933 as an example.
I'll message you.
Not
after
only
the
to
show.
garner international interest, but to explain that this is a longer activity than most people think.
So, but what you're saying is even
You're right, Chris
Italy
Johansson.
falls in 1945, the Mussolini government and the U.S. Army military swoops in and takes this.
Yes.
Yes,
and then
Mussolini
disappears
UFO,
behind
completely
the veil
and
of
totally
secrecy.
fake story.
Why?
So,
So they were secretive about
listen, just in case you're keeping track, let me check. We're up to 22 minutes into the interview. He has pushed the false, complete and total fake story of Lou Elizondo running a Pentagon UFO program. That's a fake narrative. That's a fake story. That is not true information. It's disinformation. It's misinformation. It's false information. Then he pushes the story that UFO secrets are classified higher than nuclear secrets. That's a false narrative. That's complete and total disinformation and misinformation from a known UFO wackadoo. They have some document where he claimed that somebody from the U.S. government told him that, but the same guy claimed to be in telepathic communication with aliens from Venus. That's complete and total fake story number 2 that he's pushing as real information. Now he's pushing a completely and totally fake UFO crash retrieval case that was more or less debunked as garbage, right? Yeah, I told you, I don't know if I'm not getting your emails. Here's what you could do. You could join our Discord. I'm in there every day. I will book you whenever you want. We will do it. Just email me at truthseekershow@gmail.com. Do it right now. So I'm sure I have your email address, and I will on screen here say, yes, I got your email. You don't need to email me anything. Just email and put the subject line, Hunting Victor the documentary or Victor the documentary. Just email me. And then I will let you know that I got the email, got your email address, and I'll email you back to schedule it. I will do it. And I'm sorry if you had trouble getting my attention. We don't have really somebody booking guests here. I'm a one-man army here. So I apologize. But I have done videos I did an audio podcast in the past, completely debunking the alien interview story. If you want to come on here and tell me your best evidence that it's real, and we'll have a good debate and conversation, respectfully, I promise, email me and we'll do it. I promise you. And I'm going to go log into my email right now.
Yeah.
How come?
And let you know that I got your
It's like a
email.
Pandora's box, right? If you could analyze it and garner some kind of information from it from like a reverse engineering perspective,
Or
it
put
may
your
give you
email.
like an ace in a hole asymmetric advantage over your
Yeah,
adversary.
and I don't know. I want
And,
to address something
we want
else
to figure
too
this
quickly.
out. We don't know.
People were saying in the Discord that a longtime user, Zizix, quit the Discord for whatever reason. I hope that's not true. Zizix is in the live chat. People are emailing me that they're upset that you're quitting the Discord, or I don't even know what happened. More drama, more arguments in the Discord, and I apologize if that's the case. We don't want you to go anywhere. We want you to stay right here with us, Zizik. So email me, message me on Discord. I'm glad to see you're still in the live chats here. I don't know what happened on Discord, and I apologize for whatever did happen.
Know if Russia's ever found any of this stuff, at the time, and is this? And of course, they didn't know the origin of it. They just wanted to make sure it wasn't.
I agree.
So
UFO
they spent
Shane.
years looking at it and developing an intelligence infrastructure to figure out what was going on.
So is that the first that you know of?
No, but that was one of the ones I ran through DoD security. And
so you
Let me
believe
go
they're
check my
earlier.
spam folder. I don't know.
I don't want to comment either way. Yeah, I know about many other events, but however, that's the only one that I've cleared through security.
Okay. But you can say for at least this 80 years, the U.S. government has.
Yeah, at least from.
Yeah, I don't see any email from you yet there, Victor.
Well, you said the U.S. government didn't take custody till the end of the war.
That particular one, yes.
Okay. But you are saying the U.S. government had knowledge in the 30s.
They were aware of the issue back then, yeah.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
Hold on. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to your channel so I can get your email address. Hopefully.
Yeah, people ask that. I think one of the tropes that a lot of skeptics put out, like, oh, well, it traveled so far. Why did it crash? Did it crash by accident or on purpose? And there's something called the concept of von Neumann replicating probes, which you can Google.
And this is not an adequate explanation.
Postulated that if you're advanced, you might have thrown.
It's a fair question and a skeptical one to say these aliens came from whole other star systems and somehow they got through light years of distance, but then they crashed on Earth. That's a fair question. He doesn't answer the question. Now he just gives some kind of bullshit excuse for why, self-replicating probes, right? Yeah, and I'm going over there to get your email address. And I apologize. I know you asked a few times. And for those unaware, if you'd like to be a guest here, all you have to do is email me. But sometimes I just don't get emails. I don't know what's going on. I'm ready to start a. Oh, wow. You made a video a month ago saying even Stephen Cambria of Truthseekers can play loose with facts. I'm going to have to check that out. But I got your email address. Well, I have your YouTube channel. Send me your email and we'll make that happen. Oh, and I have it. John Stewart. Okay, so I have your email. We'll schedule it after the show, and I apologize. Let's continue with this journey tonight, and that'll be a journey for another time.
Throwaway probes. I mean, think of like the Voyager spacecraft, for example, right? Well, we don't care what the disposition is at the end. We just wanted to go as far as possible. So the crashes aren't necessarily on purpose. And I'm not just saying that as my own personal theory. I talked to scientists that were on this program.
If we have time, we'll play your critique video of how I played loose with the facts.
And this was one.
We should have time.
What
are we up to? We're almost up to a half hour. It's only an hour interview.
Came from so far. Do we know that?
Well, that's the thing, is you don't really know the origin. Right. People, even certain directors of government agencies we talked to about this issue, and they were well aware of this program. They like to use the term extraterrestrial, but I'm a little skeptical about that. That's why, I like to use the term NHI, and that also is non-human intelligence. And that is also a term that Chuck Schumer, in the Schumer Amendment, so Chuck.
Yes, don't say aliens, say non-human intelligence.
Schumer, Senator Gillibrand, Rubio, Rounds, and Young proposed an act called the UAP Disclosure Act of 2023. It's an amendment within the fiscal year 24 National Defense Authorization Act, 67 pages, publicly available. It is currently in conference right now, and they use the term non-human intelligence, biologics. So I'm not the only one using those terms. That is the majority leader, Chuck Schumer, who, by the way, was friends with Harry Reid, and other notable senators are also pushing for transparency in this matter.
Yeah, and using a brand new term, instead of alien, use non-human intelligence.
Is there any evidence that these objects are coming from far away through space into our atmosphere?
That touches some sensitive national technical capabilities I can't cross, but
Sounds like there's some
Yeah.
suggestion they're coming from under the ocean.
I
Well,
think
you should get your
it's
money
a
back
multi-domain
there.
issue, and there are a bunch of potential origins that are based either in physics theory or biological theory. And, I'm open to all possibilities.
Is it known, so far as you know, where they come from?
There are reasonably confident theories. However,
Reasonably confident
I have not
theories.
seen all the data, and I don't always, trust everything certain interview subjects espouse, because I might have like an intellectual.
Maybe
or
they don't
even
have the no man
analytical
left behind
kind of
rules like we do.
difference in an opinion. So, but I do encourage the president, and through this act,
I agree, Steve
make,
Nicholson.
all data as it relates to origin, transparent to the American people.
Well, that's, I mean, if you can't even say it now,
Mhm.
and I want to get into that, like why the secrecy actually.
Yeah, why the secrecy? It's interesting. Again, Grusch wants transparency from the United States government, but he doesn't want to provide transparency of his own career.
Well, that's the problem, is it's actually hindering national security by keeping it so tight, because you don't have broad industrial base and broad
The
academic
rescue
study.
missions also
So
crashed.
just like nuclear physics, you can go and get a PhD in it. You can read about it. You can study it. How you build nuclear weapons, that's classified, and that's fine. I just want this subject to basically be horizontally protected, like nuclear secrets, like true nuclear secrets, where the broad study of which should be open to the public, and anything that is really dangerous to release because of weaponization or something, keep that classified. But 95% should
If
be
they know there's aliens,
open
they
to
should at least
study
tell us
throughout
that.
the world.
Well, especially since it sounds pretty clear that the U.S. government's been in contact with whatever these are. You wouldn't confirm or deny that in your congressional testimony.
Yeah,
It's
maybe
very
those
clear to
body
me.
language expert
And
guys will get after this
I
interview
won't ask you
too.
because you already haven't answered, but that's being done in the name of the U.S.
Yeah, there's no
taxpayer,
proof that he would
citizens,
spend any
voters.
time in prison.
And at some point, they have a right to know.
That's a grift talking point. That's an excuse. We're at 196 days, and he hasn't shown any real evidence. How many days are you? Seriously, Mark Kyle, how many days are you going to wait until you have to admit he has no evidence? And if you did have real evidence, wouldn't you drop it on the biggest podcast in the world, on Joe Rogan, or on this huge media appearance where 5.5 million people are going to see it? Why would you hold back evidence for what? A documentary deal? What? A book deal? Dobser cleared him to talk about alien bodies, alien crash retrievals, alien spaceships. Therefore, those things aren't classified. We've gone over this many, many times. If those things were classified, they wouldn't even let him mention them, right? But yeah, espouse is better than espouse. At least you got the term right. Yes. Yeah, I agree. Incorrupta says, I fall over one thing to begin with. Why claim service people are credible when they are paid to lie for years? Can they unnot credible themselves? Yeah, I would think so. And Eric Stitt, thanks for being a member, with a very important point. Why do all of these, quote, whistleblowers, unquote, use talking points that are actually plot points from well-known science fiction themes? Yeah. And I sure like that table as well. I would love one of those for the cabin. He's got like a cabin set.
That. Like, I can't imagine what the justification for keeping that from the public, who you work for, what could that be?
Yeah, I think it's an abuse. So Executive Order 13526, if you read that, delineates the 8 reasons you classify information. And the only thing that this falls under is, scientific and technical information that has national security implications. This is boilerplate. And it's really just an abuse at this point. And
yeah, happy birthday, Mr. Ian. His birthday's Thursday.
Socioeconomic,
for those unaware, our announcer's birthday is Thursday. Wish him a happy birthday,
because
Ian.
I remember talking to
I'm not sure I believe
letter
in
agency that we happen to know personally, and we met with, and
greetings,
that
William Runner.
former director's biggest issue was the counterintelligence implications. We can't let Russia and China figure this. Okay, I get that. I used to work counterintelligence to protect U.S. programs. That's
another problem here for him. Did you hear what he just said? He just said, I used to work counterintelligence programs. So did Lou Elizondo. That means that there are now two former counterintelligence agents embedded in the UFO community, both of which worked for the intelligence community. Why are there counterintelligence agents in the UFO community spreading completely and totally false narratives? That's what counterintelligence does, by the way, in case you're curious. They spread disinformation. And now we've got two former counterintelligence officers in the form of Dave Grusch and Lou Elizondo in the UFO community spreading provably false information. And hey, let's not forget, we've also got former CIA people like John Ramirez spreading fake information. We've got a former Defense Intelligence Agency information warfare specialist embedded in the UFO community spreading false or fake information. That's a story, friends.
Previous job when I was a young Air Force officer. But there's got to be a middle ground and not, oh, well, we don't know what to do, so we're just going to keep everything unacknowledged. It's ridiculous.
But it also suggests that there's more going on here. I mean, in your own life or my life, the life of any person, the things that you hide.
Yeah, I don't know.
The things you try to keep secret,
an art,
most
not a
assiduously, are the
science.
things you're most embarrassed about.
That is true. So there was a recent administration that had an informal
I don't know why that
meeting,
is, Dana, but good point.
And
You're
I
right.
talked to multiple individuals that were in this in-person meeting with, we'll just say, National Security
he worked for
Council
the Air
staff
Force
with
Office of Special
administration.
Investigation as
And
a
one of the biggest
disinformation
issues that
agent.
they
Lucy Day.
raised
Thanks for being a
was
member.
white collar crime, illegal contracting. So there's something called the Federal Acquisition Regulation, the FAR. And if you only give a couple contractors full access for decades of this stuff, and you don't let other contractors compete for work, for money, you're giving certain companies an unfair competitive advantage that violates literal U.S. law. So it's, we're not going to release anything because then we have to deal. And I remember these individuals telling me they were worried that contractors would sue the U.S. government and it'd be litigated to the Supreme Court. Well, we're out of billions of dollars because you sole sourced it to these couple companies.
Of course. Well, and there are
that's
darker
the issue.
explanations.
And there's
too.
darker things, I'm sure, but some of the most obvious ones that they told me were.
So the government can't do disclosure because they're worried about getting sued for giving alien technology projects to no-bid contracts. That's the big concern with alien disclosure.
Very rudimentary, and it's like, well, I'm sorry you guys did that. And let's be clear, I'm not here to admonish the entire U.S. government. I mean, I know a lot of good people. I would like to think I was a good person, a good, intelligence officer.
Dumb people, I think.
I'm the son of a federal employee. You don't need to convince me. I know.
So I'm not here to overly admonish everybody. I think there needs to be, call it a truth and reconciliation process. We're not here to shackle people. We're not here to get people necessarily in trouble unless they did something grossly illegal and immoral and unethical. And I suspect, based on people I talked to, there is going to be limited situations
apparently
people are going to be found culpable in that. But I'm here, it's time to reconcile this. We need to heal from this. We need to disclose the basics, the fact that we're not alone. We've recovered material and we've recovered the occupants. And beyond that, the president can decide what should be disclosed. It's above my pay grade.
I love how he's going to tell the president what to do. A former mental patient who has been helping people generate hundreds of thousands of dollars of monetized views from his sensational stories for 6 months, not provided a single shred of evidence publicly. He's telling the president what should be done. I'm sure that Biden can't wait to take his advice, right? Maybe Biden's a little busy with his own problems.
It should be acknowledged. And I think it's a more ontologically shocking, but also uniting thing in an era of divisiveness. I think we need
I
this.
agree with that.
I mean, what else is going to unite the left, the right, and potentially our adversaries? I mean, you saw the hearing that you played the clip.
Oh, two people from the other side of the aisle agreeing
on something in the same room and not arguing. It was crazy. So this topic, I think,
he's so stone-faced. Tucker,
we're at a point in our, our
weird.
society, especially the decay we've seen over the last 30 years and the divisiveness, rather whether you're on the left or on the right.
Who needs
This
to
is the
heal
one
from
topic
this?
that I
Yeah,
think
he
can
needs to heal from
basically
his
be a reset
delusions,
button.
maybe.
So, can you just give us a sense of the scale of
Now
these
we owe the
recoveries? It's like
aliens
3, or
reparation.
is it?
It is
dozens?
double digit, and I've mentioned that publicly. I am familiar with the exact numbers. We had multiple intel officers brief us on all the numbers and where, what, when, where, how.
Where's all the stuff kept? I mean, I assume.
Yeah, we had multiple intelligence officers brief us. Who? People like Lou Elizondo? Who? People that worked for the CIA like Gary Nolan? Who are these intelligence officers briefing him on the exact number of alien crash retrievals? And why can't he name those people? More anonymous sources. More trust me, bro. That's all we get here. Trust me, bro.
I do know of some specific
Some
locations.
Boeing Raytheon warehouse.
Yeah, I mean, Harry Reid knew about one specific location, and that was the material that he was denied access to.
Why didn't he
Yeah.
show up with armed guards and demand to see it? I don't understand. Everyone's so passive.
Yeah,
Like, you're the Senate Majority Leader. Show it to me now.
yeah, you would think that there's some kind of enforcement tactic he could have used. He didn't espouse anything else besides he was trying to get access administratively by sponsoring that special access program.
So that kind of raises an interesting, having spent my life in Washington, you hear this stuff, you don't really know if it's true, about unauthorized and dark things going on in the United States to people who tell its secrets. But it does raise the question, like, why you? It's been going on for, well, you said, I guess, 90 years at least.
Yeah.
You're suggesting longer, actually.
Yeah, and just so everybody's aware, there's been multiple high-ranking military or intelligence people who made the exact same claims as David Grusch and never proved anything and never showed any evidence. So this is nothing new what we're witnessing here.
But certainly most of a century, and no one's really come forward. Like, why is that?
Yeah, I mean, there have been other people that have come forward.
You got to bring in the deep state.
Certainly, it was more
Convince them.
stigmatized in the past. Why me? I was just a guy in the right place in the right time. I happened to be ultra cleared in the DoD and IC at the time, and I generally knew who to talk to, where the skeletons were for other U.S. activities.
But what's your motive?
My motive really is just, Air Force core values.
I agree, Patrick
Service
Sheehan.
before self, integrity first, and I just did not want to, look back 30 years from now and be like, oh, I should have done something when this topic was, acceptable in Congress. We had all this momentum. I just did not want to live out
Could
my
be
life
JLW. Who
keeping a
knows?
secret like these other gentlemen and ladies that came to me and my group on the UAP task force, because they wanted a change. Some of them were in tears because they were threatened over the years. And
Threatened by whom?
Both the program, because you can imagine, hey, we're going to read you in. This is treason. You will go to the Leavenworth, and you will be executed if you ever divulge these secrets, right? So they were intimidated.
Well, have fun at trial.
Yeah. Well, the judicial process doesn't work quite the same on that program, but that's a sensitivity.
Oh, they don't have the Constitution in place?
I don't want to get
Why
into
doesn't
that.
someone just tear down the U.S. government? I mean, this is so rotten that it's like kind of hard to believe it's actually
I know.
in
No,
existence.
I lost a lot of sleep on this. But when I started getting attacked on the inside and the reprisals started happening for 3 years, I knew I was over the target, so to speak. You take fire when you're over the target, as we say.
Take fire when you're over the target, right? So somebody investigating him for possibly mishandling classified material tells him that he's on the right track. Only in UFO land is absence of evidence of anything. And thank you, Zizix. Former war intelligence people can't stop their game. You could be right, but thanks for helping us to praise the cash.
Praise the cash, praise the cash, praise the cash.
For those unaware, we read every single super chat, and we thank every single person. We thank you for your kindness, generosity, and support. Longtime show supporter and channel member, Zizix. Thank you. Let's get back to this.
In the Air Force, and it just got so crazy. I had 3 agencies investigate me at the same time. Somehow,
Which ones?
don't want to say, because there's an ongoing
This is the clip that we went
investigation
over
on my behalf by the Inspector General. I maintained my clearance. I
We're going to skip
remember
past.
the DIA
We're going to skip past this.
OSAP program I mentioned earlier. So a man named Dr. James Lakatsky ran it. He's a PhD level former DIA officer, now retired.
Yeah, and he's the guy who also is saying, oh, the government has craft, but I can't tell you anymore. So what we've got is the wackadoo prover maneuver here. One UFO wackadoo making claims of alien spaceships in the possession of the United States government is being cited by another government wackadoo making claims about spaceships in possession of the United States government. Neither of them will provide proof of their claims, but somehow both of them making similar claims with no evidence is supposed to prove something. It doesn't. It proves that two wackadoos are making claims with no evidence.
So he wrote 2 books. One is called Skinwalkers at the Pentagon. And on page 152 to 153, if anybody's watching and happens to have the book, you'll note that they talked about a sequestered technology and they were trying to get access to it. Well, that's what I just told you earlier in this interview is Harry Reid was literally trying to get them access to that technology. And
yeah, and Skinwalkers at the Pentagon. Isn't that the book that George Knapp co-wrote and said there was all this evidence for, and then he had to admit on the Joe Rogan show there was no evidence? He's citing a book full of stories with no evidence.
You know, people are like, oh, well, Harry was funding some paranormal program. They were looking at Skinwalker Ranch. It was some woo-woo thing. And I'm like, well, the real story is...
No, that was the real story.
21 or $22 million appropriated was meant to set up material analysis equipments at a Bigelow Aerospace facility to look at the material that a clear defense contractor was supposed to transfer to them.
There's no proof that $22 million had anything to do with alien crash retrievals, a warehouse to study alien crash retrievals. This is more mythology, story time.
But when that ended, they ended up doing other stuff with that money because, well, they wanted to study this phenomenon in some way, shape, or form. So they looked at some of the more, paranormal aspects, if you will. I've never been to Skinwalker Ranch in Utah, but, allegedly things are going on out there. And then they wrote these documents called Defense Intelligence Reference Documents in lieu of the core reason for that money. So a lot of naysayers in social media like, oh, Harry Reid, he was just into the paranormal and
he was a wackadoo,
Skinwalker Ranch and ghosts. That's not entirely accurate. There was a real reason for it.
No, but I'm just saying what they're doing is what it sounds like they did to you, which is try to discredit you by calling you a nut.
Yeah, and 1 week after the congressional hearing, there was a hit piece on The Intercept. Somebody verbally tipped off that reporter, and he admitted it on an interview on The Hill.
Yeah, and here is where he claims that information about his medical history was released illegally or obtained illegally. That's not the case. It was obtained through illegal FOIA requests with the local police department.
And he FOIA'd for some records that pointed towards, some, struggles I had several years ago where I, checked myself in because I was feeling depressed at a hospital. And, I'm not ashamed of that. A lot of veterans go through that, but it was very interesting.
That's a lie too. He wasn't feeling depressed at a hospital. He was suicidally depressed at home, and his wife called the authorities. And then he ended up being involuntarily committed to a mental institution. It's not like he was just at a hospital feeling depressed. That's not the story. The story is he was suicidally depressed. His wife called the authorities, and a judge 302'd him. That's a common term meaning involuntary. They locked him up involuntarily. He had no choice in the matter. So he's not being truthful or accurate with what actually happened here.
1 week after the hearing, this hit piece comes out of The Intercept, killing the messenger, but not the message, saying I'm crazy, I have mental problems. And it was totally crazy.
Why would an Intercept reporter do that?
You would think, because weren't they pro whistleblower? Didn't Glenn Greenwald create them to actually?
Well, that could be true. They're private companies.
And if some,
but it could also just be a plot point.
Comes to you to, crush a subordinate,
complete lie,
because he's revealing things that the public really has a right to know. You think the reporter say, well, actually, I want to hear more about the program. Like, what is this? Do you have UFOs or don't you?
Yeah, it's like, why don't you actually look into it? It's very lazy journalism, and there's very few investigative journalists.
Good point, Eric. Thanks for being a member.
Exist anymore.
Well, I'm very aware of it. And yes, I'm very aware of that. But I just want to get back to.
Well, he just wanted those 5.5 million monetized views. I think JLW.
So the idea is that for 90 years we've been collecting this stuff, monitoring it, studying it.
It may have been a hit piece, but it was the 100% the truth.
Imagination in the hole, as you said.
Yeah, there were certainly good breakthroughs that I'm aware of that did help certain black
Exactly,
programs
Scallywag.
that are
Okay.
conventional in
I
nature.
believe it.
And I understand that.
Can you be more detailed than any of that?
No, I can't. And
Okay.
a lot of those programs are still classified.
Right. Well, that's kind of the point I'm making. A lot of these programs are so old that no person participated in them is still alive.
No, that was the issue. Is I had to find some of the old timers before they died because there's
Well,
a brain drain.
Elon needed
I
big
have
media
there's a senior
people
intelligence
because
officer
they made
that's
a deal.
currently on the program that told us that they struggle hiring even the right technical people because of the obtuse security. Imagine the best person in quantum gravity smokes marijuana. Are they
Yeah.
getting a TS clearance? No. So they can't even bring in the
Thanks,
right
Eric
people.
Stitt. And
And
sorry for your struggles.
once again, like you just said, a lot of
An
the
excellent point. Thanks for
breakthroughs
being
have
a
not
member.
matriculated into civil society for the most part. And in an era of climate change and other things going on, and we can debate the genesis thereof, but this is the time to bring it
Yeah,
out
or
because
just
it's
to
going
get
to
the
take
millions
20,
of views
30
he knew it would
years
get.
to commercialize anything anyways.
But it does suggest that there's something more going on here. It suggests that the U.S. government, they've kept the Kennedy
You're right,
assassination
Sandra.
files, thousands
Markedly
of pages classified
different.
for 60 years this month,
Mhm.
because the CIA, of course, was in contact with Oswald and had knowledge of the conspiracy to kill Kennedy. I'm not speculating. I talked to someone who read the documents. So they have hidden those documents in order to protect themselves from public scrutiny of their own illegal, immoral behavior. I'm kind of be surprised if something similar is not going on here.
Yeah, I mean, there's a famous quote. There's a John Stossel interview where he interviews Mike Pompeo about 2 or 3 years ago, where interesting, he makes a weird, very odd in sequitur after he discusses the JFK files, ironically, and he says, if I get this quote correctly, I've seen the UFO file. We have bigger problems, is what the former CIA director says to John Stossel in a taped interview. And if you even go back, most people don't know this. There's a taped interview from Senator Barry Goldwater in the late 80s. He was famously a
Goldwater. This is another, for a guy who says he's not into UFOs, he doesn't know anything, he's not watching UFO documentaries or reading UFO books. He keeps on citing stories from existing UFO mythology. And the story he's about to tell is another story from UFO mythology in which a senator tried to get access to things at Wright-Patterson. He was denied or whatever. And again, absence of evidence is not evidence. Just because somebody was denied access to something doesn't mean that's aliens there. And that's why he was denied, because they're covering up the aliens.
Two-star general in the Air Force Reserve, but
Yeah.
of Goldwater Nickelsack famed in the 80s. And there's an interview of him, which you can YouTube if you like, that he phoned General Curtis LeMay many years ago and asked, hey, I heard there's a room where you keep all this UFO
blue
material.
room.
Can
It
I
was
have
called the blue
access?
room.
And General LeMay basically chewed out Senator Goldwater, who was, I think, Gang of Eight member at the time, and denied him access. So
yeah, and by the way, that was famously called the Blue Room, where they kept the alien secrets in Wright-Patterson. And the Blue Room has been used by many people, including, by the way, Michael Schratt. Michael Schratt calls his YouTube channel Blue Room Media. It's after this story. And I agree that it's somewhat suspicious that any senator or congressperson, gets chewed out for requesting access to something, but who knows what they have in those secret vaults? I don't know.
There's something wrong when, certain people like that, try to dig into it.
But there's a reason that they're keeping it secret.
There may be other reasons. I don't claim to be omnipotent and know all the issues, and that's why I'm not here to disclose.
Yeah, we're
This
all
should be the
glad Eric
President of the
Stitt is here.
United
Great
States and his
contributor
cabinet,
here.
because there may be issues that I'm not even aware of that may precipitate a certain
Fact check him on
form of
acceptable
acknowledgement or
views.
disclosure.
I don't think he was.
I do agree.
I could be
There is
wrong.
probably something darker and deeper and more disturbing, and I did see inklings of that when I did interview so many people of
Daniel,
high caliber.
actually,
what
great
is the
point.
truth about
Maybe LeMay
these
was hiding
claims
his
of
pot stash in
abduction?
that room.
I don't know. Nobody I interviewed had any firsthand knowledge on that phenomenon. I certainly believe people have experienced stuff like that. at least they believe it, because you look at Dr. John Mack, who's a Harvard-trained
Exactly, incorrect.
psychologist and psychiatrist, looked at
Now, here again, how many UFO-related stories has he just straight repeated as truth? Now he's repeating John Mack's stories. He repeated the Curtis LeMay story. He repeated the false story from the New York Times. He's repeating false stories from Wilbert Smith, UFO wackadoo. All he has is UFO stories of the past. Just repackaged garbage.
Phenomenon of abduction in the 90s and early 2000s before his death. And he affirmed that the people he psychoanalyzed certainly experienced something real to them. But what is the abduction phenomenon?
That's interesting, Eric Stead. I wasn't aware of that.
I'm not sure.
Is there any indication the U.S. government has studied this?
I would imagine that a part of the program that I uncovered probably would have analyzed that situation, because it is data, even if it's oral testimony data. But I really don't know anything about it.
Do you think? And I've read a couple, not just in this country but others, former government officials saying they
he just repeats UFO stories as if they're 100% facts.
Connection.
His proof is stories.
Well, I think if you were to back out to the 100,000-foot level, there certainly is a phenomenon, and how do we quantify that? Well, theologically, we can quantify that as angels, demons, that kind of thing. Many people with religious
I believe it is.
Espouse
I believe that's true
faith in that regard, and they believe
but I can't prove
a phenomenon exists. And really, what we're seeing here with the UFO UAP subject is probably just another facet of that same phenomenon. So I think this is not something that's going to destroy. I mean, even the Vatican chief astronomer in 2009,
another UFO story,
said the Vatican.
Just because the Vatican says that proof of alien life would not change the religion doesn't mean that they have evidence of it.
It's okay with non-human intelligence. It doesn't hurt Catholic theology. So
the Vatican maintains an observatory, I think.
They do, yes.
In the United States.
No, in Rome.
I believe it is in the Rome area, but I'm not an expert on the Vatican. So,
of course, be mistaken. I'm not either. Do other countries have these materials?
Well, what I said in my initial interview with News Nation is
aliens are going to do it themselves,
became a
these disclosure bros suck at
this. Under the noise floor, and other countries do have their own programs, and I can't get into those details because that's something I did not put through security review. However, I will point out, like the South China Morning Post in June 2021 put out an article saying, "Oh yeah, we have a UAP task force too, and we're using artificial intelligence to analyze UAPs." But other than that public announcement, our adversaries have kept their mouths shut on this issue for the most part.
And of course, a huge Chinese military would have a UFO or UAP program. They do not want unauthorized access to their airspace. They want to know, just as we want to know, what's flying in our especially protected airspace. It's not just because the Chinese government has a UFO program doesn't mean aliens. It means that they're worried about adversarial technology in their restricted airspace. That's what that means. Just as Canada has a UFO program, the United States, Russia, other countries. Many industrialized countries have a UFO program, but most of that is to protect their protected airspace. It has nothing to do with aliens, but they conflate these things.
Technology, aircraft technology has not actually progressed very far.
No, we've plateaued.
In many years.
Bypass turbofan was designed, I think, by Heinkel in the late 30s.
Exactly.
And that's also my issue, right? I'm 36. I represent kind of the under 40 generation. Well, where's our asymptotal leap?
I can't believe this guy's only 36. Does anybody else think he looks like to be like 50 something? He doesn't look 36 to me. He looks much older. And I hate to comment on his appearance, but it's just striking that he says he's 36. I'm assuming he's telling the truth on that point because people can check, but geez.
Where's the next propulsion? Right. And we're stuck, if people care about, carbon neutrality and green energy, well, if we have something that's only being studied for military purposes that may, unlock the next level of either energy, propulsion, whatever. I don't know. We should be
That's
openly
interesting,
studying
Arden.
at this point because look what's happening to the planet.
Okay, so that suggests what? That military contractors are incompetent, that it's so compartmentalized it can't. But our military aircraft haven't
Yeah.
progressed to some
The big
crazy level
reveal.
either.
It's us. It's always been us.
Obviously,
The
at least
alien mask.
Yeah.
not
based on
alien.
what the
It's
public
us.
knows. However, we've had multi-star generals that we
Yeah,
talked
I
to
would
as
think
well,
at least
both
mid-40s,
current and
Daniel,
former,
actually.
that
And thanks
said
for
that
being
this
here. Welcome.
program is just the wild west in some sense, where there's all these silos of activity. There's no monolithic
Yes, he wasn't age regressed with Corey Good's
director
medbed
of all these
technology,
activities, and
apparently.
it just became this uncontrolled, unmanaged black abyss
Right.
of looking into this, and
It's all the
and it's so
alien program.
disjointed that
Yeah.
people aren't even talking to each other, and it's very similar to the special access programs I saw. So this is really
Front
not
and back
that
went
shocking
wrong?
to me.
Could be.
I mean, there were
Yes.
times where I was working on a certain intelligence community program that's compartmented,
I
and
agree.
they're like, and I see what they're doing. I'm like, you do know the DoD already has that, right? And then I would have to get them cross briefed, and this is just a symptom of that same ecosystem.
Yeah, we've seen this for a long.
Mhm.
It's just too big.
Yeah. Well, the Department of Defense, I saw their audit came out yesterday, and they couldn't account for 50% of their assets, and their financial.
Try that on your tax return.
Well, their financial management system
Go
has
to
been
jail.
it's been on the GAO's watch list since 1995, and I think I read in the article in the
I
Hill,
agree, FAP.
they spend $5 billion a year on financial management software. Okay, well, so when I hear like, well, the SecDef doesn't know anything
The
about a
LW,
program.
yeah, you're right.
Oh, you can't even account for $3.8 trillion of your own assets. So how do you know what the department actually has without ordering an investigation?
No, that's exactly right.
Okay, great. Thanks for the fact check.
At what
on
point will this
acceptable
become
views.
public?
So I'm glad you asked that. So I mentioned the Schumer amendments, the UAP Disclosure Act of 23. It's currently in conference. It's part of the fiscal year 24 National Defense Authorization Act, which is what funds the DoD and
You
IC.
can mix paint.
But right now it's in a perilous position.
Well, you believe
because,
the Victor documentary.
as I'm told by staffers on the Hill, the House Armed Services and Intelligence Committees are trying to block it, specifically Mike Rogers and Mike Turner. They believe it's duplicative. It's not going to assist Aero in any way. However, having
Mike Rogers and Mike Turner,
the mics, and the thing is this provides
two of
them-
the dumbest people in Washington.
so
Just pure
yeah.
tools of the national security.
yeah,
state.
so it helps them give top cover. It helps
And here comes the attacks on the enemies of disclosure. They're stopping the alien disclosure.
them declassify things. And Mike Turner, who his biggest donors are, and he represents the Wright-Patterson Air Force Base District, and his biggest donors are Lockheed, Raytheon, and Boeing.
He's
Yeah.
shameful career.
Well, it's very interesting because his committee, the House Intel Committee, is precisely the committee I gave multiple hours of classified testimony to last year.
Yeah, and they called him. Oh no, which one of the congressional aides called Grusch an unreliable witness? That would be the people that listened to 11 hours of his testimony. Now he's claiming he gave 5 hours of testimony to Mike Turner, and they didn't care.
But Mike
Maybe because he has no evidence.
Turner seems to just go on Fox Business after the congressional hearing and say, and he doesn't use my name, but he says the whistleblower doesn't know what he's talking about. Nothing to see here. I'm like, really, Mike Turner, the mayor of Dayton for many years.
By the way, do you know who else went after Mike Turner? Richard Butt on Twitter. Is that a coincidence? Right? There's a lot of data points that may seem to indicate that somebody's using a sock puppet on Twitter and has been using that sock puppet account since before he was a public figure. After all the things that Dave Grusch supports, Richard Butt also supports. But we're going to do a separate show about that. I don't want to get too deep in the weeds here tonight. But it's enough to say that if it can be proven that Dick Butt is Dave Grusch's sock account, well, that's going to be a real problem.
Were you ever in
We'll
the
leave it at
intelligence
that.
community? Were you ever a military officer? Have you ever handled special access program material for 14 years? Oh, I have. And why didn't you call me into your office if you thought my testimony was incomplete? I mean, the guy shouldn't even be reelected.
No.
And did you know?
The enemies of disclosure, get rid of them. If they don't believe or support our delusional fantasy that has no evidence to support it, then we need to get rid of them.
That Mike Turner.
That's how you know this is all a cult. They're using extremely cult-like dynamics, extremely cult-like tactics. You have to remove all critics.
Is trying to hurt Tim Burchett's reelection in Tennessee. He's trying to fund an opposing candidate because Tim Burchett is one of the leading Republican UAP proponents in the House. He's taken it upon himself not only to try to block the Schumer amendments, ruin Representative Burchett's reelection chances because he's speaking out too much about this issue, and he is basically defaming me and discrediting me on national TV when, I'm sorry, Representative Turner, you have no idea what you're talking about. And if you want me
I think he probably does. He's just lying.
Or he does.
Of course, he's carrying water for people who don't want the public to know what they're doing.
And Lockheed has his ear. So I'm a private citizen. I can be critical of my elected officials. And
yeah, and this is, how many times now has Grusch painted a target on the back of that person?
I encourage their constituents, both Mike Rogers and Mike Turner.
This stuff does write itself, though. He does get money from Lockheed Martin. So, hey, he's part of the cover-up, you know?
To call their offices and say, no, we do not want this bill to be blocked, because if this bill gets signed into law, President Biden signs this. And by the way, the White House is okay with this amendment. You don't think Chuck Schumer called the president or national security advisor before proposing this legislation? Of course he did.
Right.
And this allows basically a 6-year process, because it forms a panel of experts, a 9-person panel. There's an economist, a scientist, a lawyer. I mean, it's what you would expect. And this was modeled off the JFK Records Act of 92, I believe.
The one they keep ignoring.
The one they keep ignoring. So who cares what they modeled this after? For those unaware, this legislation was modeled after the JFK Records Act, which essentially stated that the United States government had to release all documents related to the JFK assassination by 2016. You know what happened in 2016? They ignored it. They ignored the law that they passed, and they refused to release those records. And there's a whole lot of stuff about that, but that's a topic for another show. We thank Zizix again, MVP of Super Chats tonight. Has anyone did a 20 and back from another universe? Not that I'm aware of, but thanks for helping us to praise the cash and being a member and the MVP of Super Chats tonight.
Praise the cash, praise the cash, praise the cash.
Thank you for your kindness, generosity, and support. Boy, there's a screenshot for a future thumbnail right there.
Ignoring, but we added some teeth to it to try to, get this all the way through. And this sets up a presidential panel and associated agency to assist AARO and other parts of the executive branch to come up with a literal disclosure plan. And I encourage people to read the amendment. It is obvious if you read it. We're talking about non-human technology, non-human biologics.
Yeah, and this would not be the first time that something wackadoo made its way into legislation. That's not proof of anything. But the disclosure bros are going to use it as proof of something.
And we're talking about disclosure of these facts in an honest way by the chief executive if this passes. So if this doesn't pass, I mean, this is probably the most important law in U.S. history.
This is the most important law in U.S. history.
And if this doesn't pass,
forget about, the Equal Rights Act or, women's rights or abortion rights. No. UFO delusion disclosure, that's the most important law.
If it's successfully blocked by the House, I mean, it's a total disgusting.
Well, so I mean, we're bumping up against criminal behavior at some point. So it's like, why wouldn't people just do what generations of whistleblowers have done and just leak the material to the public?
Yeah, why doesn't Dave Grusch just leak the material to the public? Could it be that he may already have gotten in trouble for leaking material to the public? And now he's got to be extremely careful so he doesn't end up in a pokey? But good question. And one of the only good questions that Tucker asked during this whole thing, why don't the whistleblowers just release it? Remember, we were told there was 40 whistleblowers at the start of this thing. Where's all the other whistleblowers? The only one besides Grusch we've seen so far is a verified liar and eBay scammer that they called a whistleblower. So we've got 2 whistleblowers. One is a verified eBay scammer and proven liar, and one is David Grusch, a former mental patient. These are the whistleblowers that are supposed to bring, a 90-year cover-up to an end. If this is the best that they got, that should inform you about the level of evidence that they have available to themselves. A known UFO liar and scammer, eBay scammer, and Dave Grusch, a former mental patient who was under criminal investigation for whatever. We don't know yet. We'll find out.
I never wanted to be like that. I always follow the rules. I color in the lines. Anything I talk about publicly that's sensitive, I literally make sure I can say that from a security perspective. Think about it. There are foreign intelligence services watching this interview right now.
Oh, yeah. And UFO Judas made a funny video about like the Chinese and the Russians going, Dave Grusch is on. TiVo that shit. This is so ridiculous. Dave Grusch thinks he's so important that foreign governments are listening to every word he says. And for all I know, he's correct, but it's just a funny thing. Like the Chinese, the Koreans, Iran, Russia, they're all listening to everything Grusch said to try to find secrets, but he's being real careful because he's a patriot. Sure.
I am not here to hurt national security. However, I am here as a fact witness because we have an oversight issue, and I want things to change. My generation wants things to change, and for all the reasons I've enumerated.
Well, he's laughing all the way to the bank.
Self-evident.
He had to make
I think they're
tens of thousands of dollars from this interview, I would think.
About a topic that cannot be classified because it is illegal. But do you have any reason to believe that the U.S. government has hurt or killed anybody connected to these programs, American citizens?
There were concerns, like I stated during the hearing, of people that have espoused that to me. And of course, I brought some of those officers to the Inspector General, the Intelligence Community Inspector General.
You're right. This is more important than abolishing slavery.
Here's the law enforcement people you want to talk to, because I'm hands off. If that's true, you need to look into it. But
the allegation was murder?
Yes, and then physical harm. And I will say,
people have been murdered to cover up this secret. Great. Can we have a list of the people that have been murdered so we can investigate that? Oh, I can't talk about it. Come on, man. You're gonna sit on an interview that's likely to get millions of views and claim that somebody in the United States government is murdering people to cover up alien and UFO secrets, but you can't provide any evidence of that? Does that sound like a tall tale to anybody else? Because it sure sounds like a tall tale to me. If there were people being murdered, and look, this guy's supposed to be a whistleblower. If he can't blow the whistle on who got murdered to cover this shit up, he's not going to blow the whistle on anything. He's just letting people be murdered. If he has proof or evidence that people have been murdered, drop the evidence, right? Some whistleblower. He's just going to let more people be murdered by his silence on these issues. It's a ridiculous. This whole story is this guy is a full-on wackadoo. That's the conclusion. That's my professional opinion. And by the way, I've been doing this for years now. I'm a professional wackadoo translator. And when I tell you somebody's a wackadoo, you can take it to the bank. This guy is a true-on UFO believer wackadoo. He keeps repeating unproven stories from UFO land. He's repeating false narratives and lies, completely and totally fake stories. I don't care if they were published in the New York Times. If it's a fake story, it's a fake story. And he's repeating it as if it's true. He's repeating false narratives about Skinwalker Ranch and the hunt for poltergeists and werewolves being about alien crash retrieval material. No evidence of that. He is a wackadoo.
I won't get into the specifics because it's part of my open investigation. Besides the administrative stuff,
he can't get into the specifics.
It's an unknown entity to me. I do not know who did this, but their displeasure in me was made known in my personal life, and that it affected my wife and I had to report that to a certain counterintelligence element and a certain law enforcement element, because right before
Great. Can we get the law enforcement report that you filed? You filed a report with law enforcement, according to you. That would be public record. Can we know what agency you filed that with? Oh, by the way, for those unaware, I'll be filing FOIA requests. And I'm filing those FOIA requests with the local police and FBI nearest to this man's home. So if he's lying about reporting things to law enforcement agencies in this interview that got 5.5 million views, we will know that soon. Just going to put that out there. For those unaware, if you file any report with a local police or FBI office nearest you, I couldn't think of any other law enforcement agency near him that he would report, I don't know, threats of violence or whatever he's suggesting was done to him to, they would be FOIAble, which means I can file a Freedom of Information Act request and I can get the public document. So the report he made and the claims that he made in the report, this should all be public information. He should publish that. Why do I have to file paperwork and wait 6 months to find out if he's lying?
Filed my whistleblower complaint.
And by the way, here's another reason I want this clown to do 20 more interviews, because every time that this guy does an interview, he drops more breadcrumbs for people that really want to investigate his claims to find out if he's telling the truth or not. And by the way, I'm free, besides the FOIA request, to just call those local agencies and ask if he filed any reports in the past 5 years. And if he did, we'll get them. So he claimed that he filed reports with law enforcement. Let's find out if that claim is true. We'll at least be able to fact check him on that claim, but it's going to take forever to find out. That's the problem with this game.
I felt that my life was in jeopardy, and that's what I was alluding to during the hearing, because, we'll just say when you come home and you see something, you made somebody unhappy. And to this day, I don't know who it was.
He came home and he saw something.
I don't think it was a foreign entity, but there was some element that I extremely angered. And I don't say that flippantly. I say that very seriously, because I thought my life was in danger.
You can't get into details because it's part of the investigation.
It's part of the investigation. At some point, I'm happy to talk about it publicly. And also, as they say in the intelligence business, you don't acknowledge your tail. So I don't want to acknowledge some other things I've noticed that maybe,
but it sounds like
supposed to be known.
You believe you've been surveilled and threatened.
Oh, 100%. It was obvious to me. And, it was blatant.
He believes he's been surveilled and threatened.
Say what I observed, and it was so concerning. I ended up reporting it to the authorities and asked my agency for certain protective measures. I can't get into that detail. But
we'll be able to get those police reports, right? If you think somebody's threatening you, you report him to you report those threats to the local police. And if he didn't, why didn't he? He's saying right here that he did. We'll find out, Mr. Grusch.
Was certainly petrified. And at the same time that those things were happening to me personally, they were happening at the
Patrick
same
Cheney
time.
Doesn't seem truthful. He seems like a child
certain other
telling
public
tales.
figure that is known to the world.
No whistleblower, more like a smoke
another
blower.
former intelligence officer near my home as well. And it was some kind of planned multi-person intimidation activity that was very disturbing.
He's made everyone unhappy.
I'm not doing
except the people making all this money.
I'm serious. I'm doing this interview because this is protective for me. I don't want to be anonymous.
Of course.
So I'm not here for attention. This is a nightmare to even be public.
Right.
I'm used to working in a vault and briefing generals.
And by the way, these are the same talking points that he gave on the last. He used the same exact talking points, probably 4 or 5 different same exact talking points in this interview that he used on the last interview with Elizabeth Vargas on News Nation. Why is he so scripted? Why is he using the same talking points over and over again?
This is not me. I'm not a public communicator, although I'm trying. And that's why I'm doing it.
You're a very good communicator.
Well, I appreciate it. But this is a serious subject with serious consequences.
He just has problems communicating what evidence he has, because apparently all he can do is talk in circles and not actually show any evidence in every single interview. The only thing that he can do is repeat UFO mythology stories that were unproven when they were first, pushed, and they're still unproven, and he's repeating unproven UFO and alien stories.
And I suffered a lot of serious consequences.
So as you know, you've totally convinced me of your sincerity. There was a lot of whispering about your motives. This is an op. now? Why are we learning all this now?
People think that I'm a part of some CIA setup or something like that. First of all, I've never signed any kind of paperwork to be a part of an operation in that regard. Unfortunately,
You have to sign paperwork to be used as a useful idiot by intelligence agencies and UFO scammers that are generating hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars from your stories. I don't know that you have to sign anything. What if the CIA just wanted to use him to push a false narrative? Kind of like Elizondo pushed a completely and totally false. Remember the UFO threat narrative that they pushed for years and years and years? All turned out to be fake, and Elizondo turned out to be fake. Did you have to sign up to be a useful idiot for the CIA? I don't think so. The best assets I think the CIA has are assets that they don't know are assets. Useful idiots, just like Joe Rogan said.
the plan. I'm not a part of a plan. I ended up becoming a leader of a faction of, four government officials and current government officials that would like change in a legal way. And, I encourage, if there are people watching that have participated in those programs, there are multiple legal avenues, such as going to the Aero office.
Yeah, the whistleblower protections have been in place for how long now? So where are all these whistleblowers? And why does he have to appeal to people who were in those programs if he's already got 40 witnesses to those programs that he's already interviewed and has all their evidence? Isn't that interesting that he needs to appeal? If you were part of any of these programs, you need to blow the whistle, even though we've already got 40 whistleblowers. I would think that if you already have 40 whistleblowers with evidence, you don't need any more whistleblowers. You got 40. Why don't you just drop the evidence from the first 40? Why is he fishing for somebody with evidence? Could it be because his first 40 so-called whistleblowers or anonymous sources or whatever have provided zero evidence? And I think that's got to be true. Because what kind of whistleblower says they got 40 witnesses, firsthand witnesses to all of what I'm claiming, but they can't drop even a single solitary shred of proof from those 40 witnesses? And then he has to appeal for new witnesses to come forward and blow the whistle. Well, you've already got 40 whistleblowers. What about all their evidence? How come we can't see any of that? And you're appealing for new whistleblowers? This story is so transparently fake. I don't know where it goes next.
Going through the ICIG like I did, Intelligence Community Inspector General, or another cognizant inspectors general to legally provide this information.
And there are also illegal but morally defensible avenues, like coming on this show, and I'd be delighted to host.
Yeah, and there, Tucker. Oh, if anybody's got any evidence, because this guy didn't have any. 58 minutes, 55 seconds into the interview. What evidence has he put forth? Grusch, none. He has pushed completely and totally fake stories. That's true, including the Elizondo fake story, including Wilbert Smith likely fake story, right? He's pushing UFO fake stories. That's his evidence. That's his proof. No real evidence so far. An hour into one of the biggest interviews he'll ever get, Tucker Carlson, and this whistleblower provides zero evidence. All he does is repeat false narratives and fake stories from UFO land that weren't proven the first time that they were put out. But now they're being repackaged with a new man.
He wants to tell the truth about what he's seen. And there's no justification for hiding this. That's my evaluation. So I'd be happy to take that risk, to have that person on. But it sounds like given your own experience, when people say to you, U.S. government employees say to you, wow, someone was killed by the U.S. government for talking about this or planning to talk about it, it sounds like you would have to take those claims seriously.
I did, and I remember a very, very credible
he took the claims of people being murdered so seriously, but he can't show us any evidence of that. Those are incredibly serious allegations to make with no evidence. But welcome to UFO land. You can just claim things. You don't have to have proof of anything. We know you don't have to have proof of anything because here we are 6 months into the Dave Grusch story, and he still has provided zero evidence or proof of anything he claimed, including and up to fantastical claims of the United States government murdering people to cover this up.
Senior intelligence officer precisely made those allegations in front of senior officials on Capitol Hill. I was in the room.
Elected officials?
their staff. I'll just say, I don't want to get into details.
Crazy. I mean, so it's like
Yeah.
at that point, if somebody says the U.S. government killed an American citizen without a trial because he was going to tell the truth about something, that's kind of when everything stopped. You can't have that in a free country.
I mean, I think people are just paralyzed in fear because that's a reality. And I remember.
By the way, this is another often repeated diatribe of the UFO community. This information is so secret, people have been killed. So how many UFO stories has he repeated in this interview with no evidence? The Lou Elizondo story, the Wilbert Smith story. You remember him, the wackadoo who telepathically communicated with aliens from Venus. Right? Now he's repeating the stories that people have been killed to protect this secret. Who do you mean? Right? Give us the evidence of that. Give us the proof. Or is this just conspiracy land nonsense stories that were never proven and that there is no evidence for, that he is blindly, stupidly repeating? You know, he's like a bad parrot of UFO literature here.
For the certain professional staff members being very upset in the room, and I mean, they're rightly so, but like, we need to do something about that because that's not good. And most of the people that even
he could do something about that. He could show the evidence or proof that people have been murdered to protect UFO secrets, and he won't. So how serious of a whistleblower is he? He's just going to let more people get murdered to protect these secrets? Doesn't he have a moral and an ethical obligation to tell the truth and provide the evidence? If people have really been killed over this, then his silence will enable the government to kill more people, which is a moral quandary and should inform you that he's full shit. Because what normal person could sit there in silence with the evidence or proof that people have been murdered over these secrets and not blow the whistle? He's supposed to be a whistleblower. So far, all he's blown the whistle on is repeating UFO stories that were never proven true the first time around. But they're all getting repackaged with a new front man repeating the same old, tired, unproven bullshit talking points from UFO land.
I interviewed, I'm like, do you want to go to the Inspector General with me? And they're like, we'll back you up, but we don't want our name on any complaints, because they were just living in fear. You know?
So, like, for my whole life, I'd never even thought UFOs were real until.
Yeah, for all we know, do you know who his proof of that or who told him that? It was Bob Lazar who told him that, for all we know, right?
Fairly recently.
A convicted pimp fake scientist. And, friend of a friend, he's friends with Jeremy Corbell. So it's not a huge jump to think that he talked to Lazar and Lazar told him that. And, of course, I'm speculating, but we have to, because he won't tell us who told him that. There's a reason he won't name any of his sources, because then we'll know that he got it all from UFO wackadoos from UFO wackadoo land.
Me either. 4 years ago, I if you asked me 4 or 5 years ago if I thought UFOs are real, I would have laughed.
I completely agree. But the conventional explanation for the U.S. government, among those who believed it was hiding these facts, the explanation for why was the government doesn't want to sow panic, doesn't want to admit weakness in the face of its adversaries, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
Those explanations do not account for the behavior you're describing.
Yeah, at first,
they're hiding something real that implicates them. And if they're talking to these entities, whatever they are, and I believe on the basis of evidence that the U.S. government has made contact and has had continuous or at least sporadic.
He's repeating UFO nonsense. On the basis of evidence, we've made contact. What's your evidence for that? Gary Nolan? If Tucker Carlson's evidence for alien contact is people like Gary Nolan, who pushed completely and totally false UFO stories, and Dave Grusch, who keeps repeating completely and totally false UFO stories, then Tucker Carlson is very, very sadly completely and totally misinformed.
But over a period of years contact, you don't need to nod or shake your head, but that is my belief based on talking to people. Like, what is that?
Yeah, if there's certainly, a relationship that was cultivated with non-human intelligences, hypothetically, I guess, to play off of what you just said.
Now we get speculation because he has no evidence. People who have real evidence don't need to speculate so much. Just putting that out there in case you're curious.
Good or bad, it's almost like we were afraid after 9/11. Dirty bombs, terrorists. Okay, well, that's nature.
Well, I'm way behind in the live chat. I'm catching up next. I apologize.
If there's malevolent non-human intelligences, okay, well, that's a fact of life. Don't hide it, because what if the U.S. populace
Oh, that's
needs
terrible,
to be prepared for
FAP,
something
but I
similar?
can't say I disagree.
Hypothetically.
And it's also not
You
their
know?
right to hide it because they
No.
don't own the government. The
No.
public does, actually.
Exactly. It's
Wow,
just-
that's
I
weird.
understand the
Really,
reasons
Derek?
at first,
That's
but like you
interesting.
said, I think it's just the moral decay and the decay in leadership. And once again, well, we don't want to admit we did all this stuff years
But
ago.
also,
Yeah.
if the U.S. government has had contact with these entities, and again,
Yeah, he
my
certainly has some interest, I
informed
guess.
belief that the U.S. government has had contact, what are they talking about? What is that?
I would like to know too. I mean, I grew up watching Star Trek, so I mean, I say that kind of,
Yeah.
whimsically, but like, well, great. I mean, of my generation under 40, that's like, we're not shocked. That's cool. Like a Gen Zer who's 18 would want to study physics if they found out this stuff was real.
Yes.
Like this is how you boost STEM in this country, for goodness sakes. I mean, this is like the most exciting.
At least they gave us a
Yes, a
fresh
little
flyer,
scary,
right?
but
Yeah.
Overall, it's
We
exciting.
got
I mean, nothing's
tired of
happened.
the grooves on the
No,
mountain.
we're still living. I'll talk about this and nothing's happening, to the world, if you will. So I think it's exciting for young people, and I think
It's
the right
UFO
time to do
Groundhog
this.
Day. Yes. Same
Going
stories,
back
different
in
front man.
history, I mean, there are all sorts of mysteries about history that we, just can't explain.
That's
even
one of
now.
those people that he might be
Um,
talking about. An
But
unproven
it
story.
sounds
Tragic
like it would not
story,
be
but
surprising to learn that people 3,000 years ago had contact with these.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the works of Jacques Vallée.
this is a very good point. One of the often repeated diatribes was that Mark Forrestal jumped out of a hospital window and killed himself. And it is a weird story. People claim that he was thrown out of the window because he was going to reveal the truth about the UFO secrets. Never been proven. It's just UFO mythology. For all we know, he's talking about the James Forrestal story when he says people were killed by the United States government, which, by the way, is a great story, but an unproven one. That's the problem here. Because he won't name his sources and he won't cite actual, where he's getting any of this from, he could be getting it from known UFO mythology all over the place.
A
Right.
famous researcher. His character was portrayed as the French character in Close Encounters of the Third
And
Kind.
now
by Steven
he's
Spielberg.
citing Jacques Vallée, who just got caught selling a completely and totally fake story. And hey, there's another screenshot. I'm getting really good at getting screenshots for future Dave Grusch shows. I'm sorry. You're going to call this guy a national hero? Look at him. And I hate to comment on his appearance, but he just looks like a wackadoo. I'm allowed to say that. He looks like a wackadoo. He sounds like a wackadoo, repeating all of these unproven stories with absolutely no evidence whatsoever. And how long are we going to wait? We're almost at 200 days of this guy talking and still providing no evidence. But hey, it worked for Lou Elizondo for 5-6 years, right? So how are we going to be here 5 or 6 years ago talking about the latest Grusch revelations of nothing burgers? I hope
No,
not.
that guy exists. His name is Jacques Vallée, and he has a PhD, and he's a smart scientist. But looked at this, and there's a couple books like Passport to Mongolia and some other stuff. I'm probably butchering the name.
Yeah, he
where
was a PhD and everything, but it was also a UFO wackadoo who just got caught selling a completely and totally fake story about what? UFO crash retrievals, the exact things that Grusch is claiming. And Jacques Vallée just got caught selling a completely and totally fake UFO crash retrieval story. It's called the Trinity UFO crash. Completely and totally fake story. Completely debunked by Dean Johnson and many other people. We covered that here. A spectacular failure by Jacques Vallée. I don't care if you're a scientist. If you're selling completely and totally fake stories about aliens, you're a piece of shit. You're a piece of shit if you're selling completely and totally fake alien stories for cash. And Jacques Vallée did that. The book's still on Amazon. The whole story got blown to shit as fake. He's still making money off of that fake story. These are his sources. These are Grusch's sources, UFO scammers and grifters who keep getting caught selling fake stories. People like Jeremy Corbell, people like Jacques Vallée, people like Lou Elizondo, people like Gary Nolan and Ross Coulthard, all of which have been caught pushing completely and totally fake narratives, fake stories for money.
Looked into antiquity, this phenomenon. So when people say, "Oh, it's probably adversarial technology, etc.," we've been seeing the same stuff since antiquity. And this should also potentially enforce stories in theological texts, say the Bible or whatever, that people actually saw.
He didn't say it was
Ezekiel's
classified.
wheels,
He
as
said he
Tim
couldn't,
Burchett
he
has
couldn't
espoused
expand
publicly.
on it, or he
Maybe
couldn't
that actually
give
happened.
details.
Now, unfortunately, you're bursting maybe a worldview
Yeah,
or a
let's
bubble
not
for
forget
some
Put Off
people,
and Eric Davis.
but it actually ultimately it might enforce people's belief systems, because stories in the religious text weren't fable, allegory, or whatever. They happened. And I'm not saying all of them did, but there might be evidence if we were openly and honestly studying the subject in more detail.
Amazing. Last question, small question, but there clearly some connection between nuclear weapons, nuclear energy, and the sightings of these things. I mean, they've been seen around.
Now he's going to quote Robert
military
Hastings.
installations with nuclear. So what is that?
Yeah, you wonder if the nuclear testing was almost like a beacon. You know, anybody observing from far distance, like, whoa, the monkey has discovered 10 to the 6 tons of TNT energy extraction.
Or the children have found the matches. This is the exact talking points of Stanton Friedman, repackaged and repurposed with a new grifter at the helm. And by the way, I don't want to say that Stanton was a grifter. I knew and liked Stanton Friedman. I think he got a lot of things wrong. I think he had a genuine, he made a genuine effort to get to the truth, but I think he went a little too far because he had cognitive bias. But this is all UFO mythology. Unproven stories that were put forth ages ago in some cases. I think Stanton Friedman first started using those talking points in the early 80s. Now Grusch is using those same talking points. And as much as I loved and respected and really liked Stanton Friedman, he never proved that aliens became interested in us because of atomic tests or nuclear tests. He never proved it. It was a story he told. And now Grusch is telling that same story, and he's not proving it.
They're close. Maybe they're only an order of magnitude away of energy extraction to develop technology that maybe they have, hypothetically.
Right.
And it might have been just like
Give
a
them a
light
ride
bulb.
home.
We turned it on, and now they became more interested. And it might be also a symptom of what we call collection bias, where modern society, we were more calibrated to look for that kind of stuff because there was like sci-fi movies in the 30s and 40s, and maybe people were looking up more, maybe.
Thanks, FAP.
But certainly
Good
there
to see
is
you
some
here again.
kind of nuclear connection. What does it mean? I don't know. They're obviously
heard it from
performing some
Corey
kind
Good.
of reconnaissance and surveillance of us as it relates to
Yeah,
not only
me
our nuclear
too.
weapons
Unacceptable views,
and
but it's
nuclear
pretty clear now.
facilities. If anybody wants to read a book called UFOs and Nukes by Robert Hastings, he spent 40 plus years looking at interviewing Air Force missileers, other credible
I agree.
witnesses.
That's a very good point.
And,
We'll talk
very
about that.
famous incident in 1967.
Yeah.
Bob Salas, right?
Shut down the base.
Shut down the nukes. And, we should take those observers seriously. They're trained. They have clearances. They have their, jobs on the line, lying in that regard. And so there is a nuclear connection. I encourage people to read that book. But what does it mean? I don't even know. No idea.
Well,
Yeah, and that book heavily features the guy from the Maelstrom incident, who also is a UFO wackadoo, who also claimed, besides claiming that the United States government's nuclear missiles were shut down by aliens, that he was abducted by aliens. So there's that.
You're a brave man. And I'll be honest, I didn't know what to think because there's a lot of whispering about you, but I think you're totally sincere. And
Thank you, sir.
And I really appreciate you doing this.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, we made it through, friends. We made it through another one. I'm glad we got through it. So what we've learned is that Grusch has no problem repeating completely and totally false, fake UFO stories. He repeated the Lou Elizondo lies. He's repeating stuff from known UFO wackadoo in the form of Wilbert Smith. He's citing as sources of credible information people who just got caught selling completely and totally fake stories about UFO and alien crash retrievals. He is repeating talking points of other UFO people before him that never proved them. Oh, the kids found the matches. Oh, they discovered atomic weapons, right? It's not looking good, and I from the very beginning said that I didn't think that he had any new or verifiable or real information, and that I thought that he was getting all of his information from known UFO mythology and known UFO hucksters. And so far, with every single interview, he has proven my original theory about him to be more or less correct. And yeah, I agree. Good point. Digital Vortex says Jacques Vallée is believed to have been connected to the Avery using the pseudonym Partridge during the 1980s early messaging board. He's using, yeah. And Scallywag says he's using his military service to give himself false credibility. Yeah. Well, he has no evidence, so they have to talk about his military service. Grusch and Elizondo were both fired from DOD HR files are forever redacted. They can claim anything. Rob is making a claim here that I can't prove or verify as true or accurate, but a lot of people are speculating about that very thing. And unless they're going to, speaking of transparency, can we get your HR files from when you worked for the government? That would go a long way towards transparency. But you see, they only want transparency from the people that they think are running this massive 90-year-long cover-up. They don't want to actually provide transparency of their own claims. Spooky's here, reminding people to hit that like button. And I also wanted to take a moment to recognize our announcer here. If you hear those, the man with the golden voice bumpers, that beautiful English voice that does our voiceovers, Mr. Ian. It's his birthday this week, and he's turning 53 years old, I believe, this Thursday. So happy birthday, Mr. Ian. If you see him in the live chat or in the Discord or anywhere, wish him a happy birthday. Archaic Revival is here. And thanks for being a member. Says their technology would likely require elements unique from their planet. So a working sports model of a type or trade is necessary. Yes. Incorrupted says, I'm innocent. I pressed the like. Yeah. I'm always a little upset to see, we've got 170 people in the live chat. Of course, not all of that is at YouTube. But we can check and see that the video doesn't have that. It only has 84 likes. So there's another almost 100 of you that haven't smashed the like button. We appreciate when you do that. It really does help. Alga Ray, happy birthday to the man with the golden voice. Yes, the man with the golden voice. Happy birthday, Mr. Ian. And Tales of the Sonic Voyage is here. Welcome. Good to see you. Says every time I hear that goober talk, all I hear is Peanut's adult voice blabbering. Wah, 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 wah. Yeah, I got that exact same thing myself. In fact, I was going to make a video of it. First thing I do when I show up to shows, I hit the like button. It's a good habit to get into. Well, we love and appreciate all you people smashing that like button. And for those unaware, we read every single super chat. We've read everyone we've gotten so far. If there's any additional ones, we'll be reading them after a very short break from the man with the golden voice, reminding you. But every time I do this, I haven't played those bumpers in a while. We have to remind people that the show is not over. I'm going to be returning, and we'll be taking comments and questions from the live chat. You can ask me about tonight's subject or any subject you like. Please put questions or comments for me. Please put them in all capital letters. It really, really does help so that we know that the question is directed to me to share. And we appreciate all of you doing that. For those unaware, I am vision impaired. And I'm not going to be nasty about it, but I just once again want to announce to the people that are attacking me in comments or sending me nasty messages for wearing glasses. I'm visually impaired. I'm literally half blind. I have something called third nerve palsy. That's what the glasses are about. It's not because I wear my sunglasses at night, although I do, because of my vision issues. Just putting it out there because some people are making assholes out of themselves. I always say the same thing back to them. Like, maybe there's some kids in wheelchairs you could go make fun of next, right? Great job making fun of a disabled person for, wearing glasses that are for that medical condition, and really it's mostly cosmetic. You know, my condition is commonly called a lazy eye. So in order to not think about my wonky eye and what's going on with it, or if I'm looking at the camera right or whatever, I just put on the glasses and we rock on with life. And what you know, I haven't played those bumpers in so long that I'm having trouble finding them. So maybe I'll have to do it verbally, but I really don't think so. Yeah, we're a viewer-supported show. And I swear I have some bumpers around here somewhere to remind people of that. And we read every single super chat, which means if you send a super chat, it will definitely get read. Oh, yeah, I found them. Okay, so we'll be right back after a short break, reminding you that we're a viewer-supported show. We use the PBS model. All of our content is now and will always be free, but you can throw a couple bucks in our hat and get a couple of extras on Patreon and the YouTube channel membership. By the way, oh no, I moved it. I was going to show it, but I'll save it for you YouTube channel members. I have a new character for the show called Gary Go Scam. I'll be doing a screen test of the Gary Go Scam character and putting that on YouTube, if not tonight, tomorrow, or the next day, but it'll be there this week. You get a couple of extras. I hate putting things behind a paywall, but the Patreon's only $1. The YouTube channel membership is $5, and you get a couple of extra goodies besides the same stuff we put on Patreon, like a channel membership badge and things like that. We want to thank each and every one of you supporting the show. Remember that the people selling you the lies are making millions of dollars, or at least hundreds of thousands of dollars. So in order to combat this disinformation, misinformation, fake information, false information, and completely and totally fake stories, I think it's good to have, I wish there was 100 more shows like mine. Unfortunately, almost every show starts out with good intentions, and then they fall to the dark side. Before you know it, they're interviewing the same grifters, liars, and scammers that we cover here honestly, but letting them be liars, grifters, and scammers. We don't want to fall to the dark side. So every dollar donated to the show helps us stay honest here and report these things accurately and bring you the real truth behind the lies being pushed. We appreciate all of your support. I'll be back in just a moment.
Truthseekers is a viewer-supported show. Wonderful people like you who enjoy this show send pledges in the form of super chats, super stickers, super thanks, PayPal, or Cash App. Instructions for how to help are in the description. You can also join our Patreon, and for as little as $1 a month, you can get extra content. Patreon supporters get a backstage pass, early access to all our production videos before they are distributed publicly, Stephen Campion's music, private writings, a monthly show journal, and more. You can also become a YouTube channel member for $5 a month. A YouTube membership includes all of the Patreon benefits, plus a special members badge, priority reply to video comments, and the live chat, plus a monthly members-only video. We thank you all, kind and generous benefactors, for supporting Truthseekers. Thank you for your generosity and support. Truthseekers is a viewer-supported show. Now there's a great way to support these broadcasts and show your support. Please be sure and check out our merchandise store. Links to our 2 merchandise online stores are in the links to this video or podcast. The Amazon storefront ships super quickly in the United States, Great Britain, and many more places. Amazon may not ship to your country or location. If that's the case, hit our second merchandise link in the description and visit our Redbubble storefront. Merchandise from our Redbubble storefront ships worldwide, but may take longer than Amazon. We've got a great deal of super high quality merchandise for you to choose from, including t-shirts, phone cases, sweatshirts, and even pillows. The feedback from our products have been overwhelmingly great. Quality products and fast shipping. People all over the world are buying some merchandise and showing their support of the show. Praise the cash. Praise the cash. Praise the cash. We thank you all, kind and generous benefactors who are buying some merchandise and helping us to continue this journey. Thanks for being here. This is Truthseekers with your host, Stephen Cambion. Please rate, like and comment on our videos or podcasts. If you are listening to an audio podcast, please rate us 5 stars to help us rise in the search rankings. If you are watching on YouTube, please like, comment and subscribe to our channel. If you're listening to an audio podcast, we love and appreciate you listeners, but you are missing the live tapings. All our shows are recorded live with video feed. We'd love you to come be a part of our live broadcasts and tapings for the podcast. Head on over to YouTube, click the search tool, the little magnifying glass, put Truthseekers, one word in the search bar, and hit enter. You'll see a strange and mysterious guy with sunglasses. That means you found the channel. Go there, smash the subscribe button and hit the notification bell to receive up-to-date info on our YouTube channel. We welcome you to be a part of our live taping and our chat room during the live broadcasts. Seek the truth. Speak the truth. This is Truthseekers. Truthseekers.
All right, we are back, and we're going to be taking comments and questions from the live chat, and and reading any remaining super chats. I do have a couple of PayPal pledges for those unaware. You can send funds through the super chat system on YouTube, the Gold Pill system on Pill, though we're not broadcasting live on Pill tonight. Long story. And you can subscribe on Twitch as well. For those unaware, if you have an Amazon Prime account, you can give a few dollars. I think it's $5 a month to a Twitch subscriber of your choice. It's included in your Amazon Prime membership. It'll cost you nothing to do that. So subscribe to our Twitch channel if nothing else, and that really does help. Also, you can send a PayPal pledge, and we absolutely read every single PayPal pledge, but you have to add a note. Please be sure to do that. Just add a note with anything you want us to read on air. We want to thank Maria for a kind and generous $20 PayPal pledge. Maria says, the shows have been great lately. I love the replays. Please keep them going. Yeah, I'm still trying to decide on that, Maria. It's a lot of work to generate those replays. It's already Monday. I have 0 replays generated for this week, but I'm going to work on that later this evening. We thank you for your kindness, generosity, and continued support. And then we have someone with the initials RJ. They gave me their legal name. This is why it's important to add a note. If you add a note, put your chat room user ID. So I call that out. And we thank RJ for a kind and generous $25 PayPal pledge. No message, just says support of Truthseekers show. We thank you both for your kindness, generosity, and support. So we'll take some comments and questions from the live chat. Somebody asked me about this box. This box is art supplies. This is all, I got to move it. Yeah, I was sitting here at my desk, and I'm painting those masks that you see This is all brushes, and we've got all kinds of acrylic and oil paints in here that I use to work on those masks with. So for those curious, it's not a Men in Black box. There's no guns. Somebody, yeah, it's art supplies. I promise. It's all filled with paint and stuff like that. That's all it is. And really, it should be moved. It shouldn't be here. And I still have 3. Is it 3 now? No, it's 2. I got one of the 3 down workstations. For those unaware, I really like Xeon processor workstations. We had 3 of them down. I got 1 working. That's the one over here right now. I got 2 to go, including my main rig is down. Still have that Windows issue. I haven't worked on it. I've been too busy working. So, time to work on PCs is not something I enjoy. Hal Gene Contactee says, Steve, what is your prime motivation for doing all this, mostly at your own expense? Very good question. Well, I would be lying if I said I didn't feel a certain degree of bitterness having bought into the lie for years. And so once I realized just how many layers of deception and how many grifters and scammers and liars and hoaxers there are out there in the UFO world, once I really woke up, I like to call it the second red pill moment. The first one, you think you're red pilled because you're listening to all of these conspiracy theories. But the second red pill moment is when you realize that most of these people are full of shit and they're lying to people. And then you realize how much money is being generated lying to people. And I thought that somebody should do something about it. Now, before I get myself in trouble, certainly there have been other people that did something about it. And even recently, somebody's in my live chat claiming that some other show host ripped their show off of me. I don't believe that because, there were people long before me. Most notably, UFO Watchdog had a website that was doing virtually the same thing I'm doing, just going through these people's stories and narratives and picking them apart and blowing them to shit. And he was doing that, I think, as far back as like 2005. I don't know. So certainly what I'm doing is nothing new, but I thought it was sorely needed. I think that somebody should be looking at, look at some of the things that we've accomplished here. We blew Anjali's story to shit with the help of some other researchers, including James A. Conrad and certainly Charlie Weiser, who I think is just an excellent researcher and bullshit detector. We destroyed her story. The entire operation being run by a Defense Intelligence Agency information warfare specialist, we proved her entire story was completely and totally fake. I think that's important. If we hadn't done that, she'd still be grifting. Who knows how much money she would have made deceiving people. And let's be clear, it was a deception. Then we've got Linda Moulton Howe. We caught her selling at least twice now, selling completely and totally fake pictures of aliens, claiming they were real pictures of aliens and charging people to get behind her paywall. So part of it is just, to me, it's like somebody has to do this to protect the innocent from being scammed. And if nobody, at one point I said, if and let's be clear, because I don't want to start more, drama with some other show host that may have done this before me, but I really did think if no one else will do it, I'll do it. Let's report on these things honestly. Mr. Ian reminding, and thank you for the very important question, Hal Gene Contactee. I don't like to see people get ripped off. I consider many people in the UFO and conspiracy land community my friends. And let's be clear, there's a real difference between your real world friends, and your internet friends. But I'm still very friendly with many people on the internet, and I don't like people ripping off my friends or my family. Remember, I've talked about this. I had people directly in my family that were deep, deep, deep down the rabbit hole of Q nonsense. And I feel like, and some of them gave lots of money to some of the Q grifters. I don't like the feeling of standing idly by while my friends or family or even acquaintances or neighbors, anybody is getting, conned or scammed by grifters. And considering my background, I thought I had a good skill set in which to do this kind of work. I looked around and decided it was a good idea to do that. And also, let's be clear, when I started my first show, which was called The Midnight Hour, it was an audio only podcast, I was much less skeptical. But as time went on, I got more and more skeptical until we were at the point we're at now, where my default position, I'm sorry, is skepticism. It's because how many times am I going to be fooled by liars, scammers, grifters, and con artists before I say, this guy's probably a liar, scammer, and grifter and con artist as well. And by the way, I think it's really funny that some clown that is literally crowdfunding is calling me a grifter, right? What we do here, and just so everybody is aware, especially if you're going to be stupid enough to call me a grifter, you're a debunker grifter. Yeah, debunkers don't make any money. And all the money that we make here, I don't use for anything but the show and the show expenses. And by the way, I have spreadsheets. I'm not making them public. I don't have to. You take my word for it. And if you don't want to, then go fuck yourself. But every year I file taxes. We pay income tax on any income generated. I'm not running a charity here, so we have to pay taxes on it. And then we have software, just for an example, Spreaker and StreamYard, which is the two primary, things we use to produce the show. That alone is $100 a month. So right out of the gate, our show expenses plus whatever software that we need, hardware, webcams, microphones. I just put the money, and I'm just saying this because, it bothers me that some asshole that's funding an entire fucking lab through crowdfunding and doing wackadoo experiments where nothing works is going to come here and call me a grifter. I don't pay my household expenses from the show income. All that show income, it goes into the till, and anything we need here, within reason, it all comes out of the till. So the backdrops, the microphones, the webcams, the multicam setup, the software. I use the show money for things that I think will improve the show. I've never used any of the show money for any personal expenses, medical expenses, food expenses, grocery expenses, rent expenses, utility bills, or anything. And by the way, I should use some of the show money for my household utility bills, because certainly running two sets with all these lights, cameras, action is going to cost extra money, but I don't do that. So yeah, I'm just want to make it abundantly clear that all the show income is for the sole purpose and benefit of the show. Unlike other people, I don't pay my rent out of this. I don't eat out of any money people donate. It just goes into the till when we need something. And by the way, we have had some expenses that I went, I'm not sure if this is, should I spend the show money on that? But I have in certain cases, like we've purchased some music rights so that we can use that music on the show and other things. Oh, wow. We want to thank Lucy Day for a kind and generous $50 Australian. And also Lucy Day is a show member. YouTube channel member. I can't thank you enough. Very, very generous of you, and also very generous of Zizix, who's always thrown a couple of bucks in our hat and did so a bunch of times tonight. We thank all of you for your kindness, generosity, and support. And we want to take a moment to thank you, YouTube channel members, and you Patreon supporters, you PayPal pledgers, Twitch subscribers, and Lucy Day, very kind and generous, $50 Australian. Praise the cash. And Lucy Day says, praise the truth. Can't thank you enough for your kindness, generosity, and support. We thank all of you for helping us to praise the cash, bitches.
You're watching Truthseekers. Praise the cash, praise the cash.
Yes, very generous. Thank you, Lucy Day. We thank you for your kindness, generosity, and support. Yes, Lucy Day and Zizix dropped some money bombs tonight, right? Yeah, Mr. Ian said this to me before, but it made me feel uncomfortable. So let me know what you think in the live chat. Since Mr. Ian is so intent on pushing this issue, I have suggested opening an Amazon wish list for the show so people can buy nice mics and equipment to increase our viewing pleasure. I felt weird about doing that because you know who else uses Amazon wish lists? OnlyFans girls. I'm not kidding you. That's the only people I know with Amazon wish lists. I mean, maybe it's a good idea. I could use another. I can use another one of the primary microphones we use, which is what the hell is that? Oh my God! Everybody uses this mic. A Blue Yeti, you know, and I could use a couple other things, but I don't. I haven't felt comfortable making an Amazon wish list. Maybe we'll do that. Let me know what you think. Yeah, 4K. Mr. Ian says 4K cameras, directional mics, maybe a mixing desk too. Well, for those unaware, my next big project to support the show is going to be a MIDI studio. What do I mean? Over here, you see one of my synthesizers. I've got 12 of them. Various weird synthesizers. I love synthesizers. So I'm going to be building a MIDI studio. For those unaware, any modern synthesizer has something called MIDI. So you'll be able to control everything on the synthesizer and use it to generate music from one computer. I'm working on that, or I'm going to start working on that. I got all synthesizers. I got a computer to run. You don't need much to run MIDI, but I got a MIDI interface, a bunch of MIDI interfaces. I'm going to be building this MIDI studio. That's the next big upgrade for us here. Because once I have that MIDI studio, I'll be able to generate bumper music, documentary music, film scores, show, you know, intros and outros. I can already do that now, but it's just going to make doing that much, much easier. We're always upgrading things here to give us more capability. Lucy Day says, thank you for this channel. Despite what some say, it's benefiting everyone out there. Well, we thank you. I appreciate that. And, you know, every time I'm feeling very discouraged, you know, like when some guy who's crowdfunding a whole lab comes in here and calls me a grifter. And by the way, he's a big Stephen Greer ass licker. Yeah, you know, I get in a bad mood, but people like you, Lucy Day, keep me in a good mood and keep me on the right track. One of our tenets here is to be a public benefit, and I believe that we're accomplishing that goal. I've heard nightmare stories of people bankrupting themselves funding some of these online scammers. Yeah, I have heard nightmare stories as well. Al Garay, hold down the Twitch chat, says, praise the cash, bitches. Mr. Ian says, we could up Steve's game without affecting his tax. Could be. I mean, if it's a wish list, it's gifts, right? I don't know. I have to look into that. I don't know if my accountant wife is going to like that. By the way, the nightmare gets started soon. And I'm not going to. I got an interesting text the other day. I don't even know if I could share this. I guess I can. I got an interesting text the other day from the person who bought my old house and studio. Because apparently the city of Philadelphia keeps sending notices that I haven't paid my city corporate income tax. But my wife closed down the city account because we don't live, nor do I work in the city anymore. I don't need to show it. Trust me. I got sent, you know, pictures of the letters. And every year, for those unaware, my wife is a corporate accountant. So you can imagine that tax time when you're self-employed is already stressful enough. Try your wife checking your receipts. Oh, man. I'm pretty sure I'm going to have to find some receipts for some push pins I bought 8 months ago. You know, it's a nightmare every year. That season is fast approaching, right? Art and Paranormal says, make a poll. Yeah, Logan Black is here with a kind and generous $2 super chat. Says, what's the most a show ever cost you in 1 month? Yeah, I really don't know. I try to keep plenty of money in there, Logan Black. I guess what I would say is I bought a refurbished Xeon workstation with a 1080 card in it that I use primarily for all the video editing here. And as I recall, that was $650. So that would probably be, that was the biggest expense ever here. And that is down right now. I have to reinstall Windows to it. I don't know. Yeah, maybe that's the most expensive month, $800 a month between the software that we use. We also pay for the website hosting. I also pay for a Google Drive. That's like $25 a month or something, you know. And by the way, I'm just going off the top of my head. So, yeah, the 1 month where we bought that workstation was a big deal. But that workstation helps tremendously here when it's running. It's down now, but I'm hoping this week I'll get it back up and running. And that's just a Xeon workstation. I think it has 32 gigs RAM. I think it has a 10 terabyte drive in it and a 2 terabyte SSD and 32 gigs of RAM and a 1080 video card, so that the video renders go really, really quick. For example, on that machine, I can make a 2-hour HD video in 20 minutes or less, render-wise, once it's edited. On the machine I'm on right now, it'd take an hour or two because there's no video, there's no 1080 or whatever. So yeah, I don't know, maybe $800 or $1,000 was the most expensive, but that was on a month that we made a huge purchase like that for the show. Generally, it's not that high. You know, maybe I'll buy a couple pairs of headphones. I'm always buying these. And by the way, I'm very thrifty. These are Five Below headphones. They're pretty good quality headphones. And since I break them or step on them so much, I don't really want to buy a $100 pair of headphones. I buy 4 pairs at the Five Below and put them in the shelf over there. Anytime I need headphones, we have them. One month it was kind of expensive because I bought 2 microphones that were over $100. If we don't make any major purchases, you know, it's $200 or $300 a month covers the show and all expenses, including the website, the hosting, the website hosting, the Google Drive, the StreamYard software, and other things. But thank you for your kindness, generosity, and support. We appreciate you for helping us to praise the cash. And by the way, somebody asked for the Trixie bumpers to be put back. I'd like to put them back as well so she can praise the cash. But the problem is, for one reason or another, one of those Trixie bumpers has copyrighted music, and I have yet to identify it. I have to figure out which one that is and cut that out of the show. We'll put those back starting tomorrow.
Praise the cash, praise the cash, praise the cash.
Thank you, Logan Black, for helping us to praise the cash. And by the way, there's other expenses for the show, you know, like this. I basically have a bill to satisfy some jerk off that was upset that we made money off of covering Corey Good because he couldn't, because he got sued by Corey Good and he didn't think that was fair. So, you know, I have to pay that money back. I'm giving it to charity. I'm arranging to give it to Expanding Frontiers Research. I got to speak to them about how exactly to do that. Yeah, and the Sixth Sense says, oh, hell yeah, graphic cards now are super expensive, way more than they used to be. Thanks, CryptoCons. Yeah. Wow, Scallywag says the new 4090 is like $2,000. Believe it or not, the 1080 I have, it blew me away because it had been so long, and that's old video card by now. But it blew me away how quickly it could help me to render videos and do 3D rendering, because I hadn't had a really good video card like that in a long, long time. You know, like a lot of people that are into computers, I just kind of get by with trash. Like I have a couple of 27-inch iMacs that my clients upgraded because they wanted the new Apple Silicon, but they were pretty new Intel chips in them. Still very useful machines, so I take them and I, you know, use them. I get by with other people's trash mostly. Zizix with a kind of generous $2 says, "Did you YouTube Dennis Lee free energy?" No, but I will do that. And thank you, Zizix, for your kindness, generosity, and support. Always throwing a couple of bucks in our hat. We appreciate you. And come back to the Discord. Whatever happened, it's not worth leaving the Discord. Oop. Oh, wait a minute.
Praise the cash, praise the cash, praise the cash.
Yeah, I got an email already with people complaining about you leaving the Discord. So don't do that. Come back to the Discord. We'll just work out whatever happened, right? Mr. Ian says, I went from GTX 960 to an RTX 3060, and now I have a 12 gigabyte RTX 4070. Yeah, well, you need that for all the AI rendering. By the way, I got some great news from Spooky today. Shout out to Spooky. AI, using anything AI generated is going to be a nightmare soon, Mr. Ian. On YouTube, you're going to have to identify in your video which parts of the video were generated using AI tools or some shit. It's going to be more aggravation. Sixth Sense says, my current video card in this old machine is more than it was 8 to 10 years ago. How does that happen? CryptoConners, yeah. CryptoConners. Eric Stitt says, and I have an RTX 3070 for my 3D art and animation, runs 64 gig RAM. and I still run out of memory. Yeah. Oh, Scallywag says PC gaming is my hobby. It's expensive as hell. Yeah, you know what? I hate people that have expensive gaming rigs because I'm always like, man, I could render some shit on that, but you're playing Call of Duty on it. Get a PlayStation and give me that. Right? Yeah. Plus, you can now get a 10-score PCI Express card. What does that mean? I don't even know what that means. Crypto miners did drive up the prices of all video cards. Yeah. Oh, those are AI cores. Okay. AI cores on the RTX cord are sick. Logan Black says, I just got a new CyberPower computer from Best Buy, which I think is their own in-house company, and I'm not happy with it. I don't recommend it. Good to know. Yeah, I don't know. I usually get by with building my own or using other people's junk repurposed, you know. Like I have he's not watching, so I can say this. My son has been wanting a PC for games, but he means games like Minecraft. That'll run on anything. So I've got a bunch of workstations that a friend gave me in the garage. I'm going to redo one for him for Christmas, and I'll throw some extra hard drives and extra RAM I got around or whatever I have, upgrade them with all the parts I have available, maybe order a few RAM chips if I have to, but not really, or a new hard drive. I don't know. But, you know, I'm always putting extra systems together. Art and Paranormal says, I tried AI for the first time earlier tonight on a profile picture. Is that an AI profile picture of you? That's interesting. Art and Paranormal. Yeah. And by the way, and as far as the Discord drama, I really don't have time for it. So if people want me to mediate disputes in there where people are going to get upset and say, I'm leaving because I don't want to yell and scream at this idiot that keeps bothering me, I'm sorry. You know, I wish it was better in there. I wish people behave. The one rule for the Discord is to please respect other users. You can disagree, but please respect other users. Yes, I much prefer Logan Black. You prefer Intel over AMD. Mine came with AMD, so I'm thinking that's the issue. Logan Black, count it 5 times. I got talked into AMD by a friend or something, and I tried an AMD processor every single time. Number one, AMD processors, to me, this is just my personal experience, they don't last as long as an Intel processor. I've almost never had an Intel processor take a dump. And but AMD, they seem to burn out. Like they're just not made for the kind of stress that I put them through. And you have to remember that with video editing, the processor will be going full tilt on all cores for an hour sometimes. That really heats it up. So you got to have good cooling and whatever. I don't know what it is with AMD processors. I've never had any luck with them. Now, I did really drool over the 64-core Threadripper AMD processors, but I didn't want to take a chance because every time I take a chance and say, okay, I'll try AMD again, I regret it. I have never not regretted an AMD processor choice. And I feel the same way about NVIDIA versus theirs, you know. I have never had problems with NVIDIA video cards, but always had problems with their major competition. I don't think that's a coincidence that I keep having problems with hardware from the same company. And I get it. You can get maybe more processor power for cheaper, but is it going to last as long as the Intel? I really like Intel's Xeon processors. You can look them up. They're used in workstation class machines and servers. They're usually much beefier. They usually have better cooling solutions that come with them, and just higher power, more industrial. They last. Yeah, Eric Stitt says AMD are hot garbage. He's a little more passionate than me. And thanks for being a member, Eric Stitt, and being here. No NVIDIA every time their AI frame generation is top notch. I always go Intel with my CPU. Yeah, see, it seems to be a consensus. The Sixth Sense says, I've only tried a few AMDs. Nope, never again. Sure, cheap, but nowhere near Intel's, though. Yeah. Yeah. And Eric Stitt says, just stay with NVIDIA and Intel, can't go wrong, easier to replace as well. Radin Sapphire says Archaic Revival. Not familiar, but thanks for being a member, right? Mr. Ian says, I was dubious about the screen, but couldn't go back now. Well, that's strange. What kind of screen? You know, I'm still waiting to get I'd like to get a big curved screen. But I mean really curved. Some of them, they say they're curved, but they're barely curved. I don't know. I haven't bought a new monitor, by the way, in probably 10 years. All the monitors you see are client upgrades. And even these big 50-inch screens, these are like, they were cheap, you know. These are good for, I do play some games, but when I say I play games, you know, I'm playing like The Force Unleashed. That's how behind I am on gaming. I'm playing like 10-year-old games, so I can get by on any piece of trash with a decent screen, and the bigger the screen, the better, because I'm visually impaired. Yeah, Scallywag says, ultra-wide monitor, I'd love one. And now we've degraded into a tech discussion. So all the ladies in the audience are bored and leaving. Thanks, guys. The 6 cents Radeon Sapphire, I don't even know. I don't know. Oh, Mr. Ian has a 32-inch Samsung curved setup. That sounds good. I would like that. I picked out my computer online and went into the store and just grabbed the box that looked like it, but it was the AMD version of the same product I grabbed by accident. I figured screw it too. Well, Best Buy is very good. If you take it back and say this AMD is hot garbage, I want the Intel version, pay the difference or whatever, they might do that for you, you know? Tell them that, I always tell them that I have a big YouTube channel. They know they don't want to get a bad review on a big YouTube channel, so they just cave and do what you want, you know. Crypto Alchemist says nerding out. Yes. Oh, Flubber Lane says, I don't have the room, so I play laptop gaming. Well, God bless you if you got a gaming laptop that can do that. Those are expensive as well, right? Never had a gaming laptop, but I'd like one for video editing. He typed Radin, but yeah, he meant Radeon Sapphire AMD CPU. Yeah, anybody remember Cyrix CPUs? That's how old I am. I remember Cyrix. For those unaware, that was probably the first competitor to Intel processors. A company named Cyrix came out with 486 and Pentium clone chips, but they were hot garbage. Guess what? They basically turned into AMD, didn't they? Oh, there you go. There's a great old game. Stormcrow says, I'm currently playing through Knights of the Old Republic again. Yeah, I've played through Knights of the Old Republic probably 10 times. And I've played through The Force Unleashed, both games probably 10 times. And Jedi Outcast and Jedi Academy. And meanwhile, I have a PlayStation 5. Well, my son does. And the newest Star Wars games, I tried. I couldn't get into them. I don't know why. Maybe I have to try again, you know. Rain Dimension says, I still play original Battlefront 2. Yeah, you got to. I love the Empire Strikes Back, the Hoth missions in Battlefront. We're talking about Star Wars Battlefront for those keeping track. Yeah. SGI workstations, Sun machines, your kids to me. Dino Beaver. I always wanted an SGI workstation just to see what I could do with it, because those things were like $40,000 or $50,000. And once upon a time, not long ago, somebody gave me one to play with, but I couldn't. The software for it, unless you pirate it all, is like impossible to get now. So I couldn't do very much with it. I gave it back to my friend who sort of loaned it to me. Remember, Apple crafted their own processors. Those were dreams come true. Why in the world did they cave into the x86 architecture when their number crunching was masterfully superior? I was a big fan of PowerPC. I thought that was the future of computing at one time. Digital Vortex says 4K video rendering is intensive no matter the system. 8K, unless anyone is broadcasting on stadium screens, is a complete waste of processing power. I agree with you completely and totally. At some point, your eye, it's already good enough and your eye can't discern better, right? Daisy B is here, and thanks for being a member. Lovely to see you here, Daisy B. Thank you for being a YouTube channel member. Says, hey everyone, I've been lurking, getting ready for work. Battlefield 1 is dead. Battlefront 1 is dead. Yes. Mr. Ian says, if you guys want a locally installed filterless AI generator running on your own PC via NVIDIA, AMD, or CPU, then search for Stability Matrix. I recommend the Focus package. You're going to have to walk me through that, installing that, because I think you sent it to me and I was like, there's too many steps involved here. Mine came with Ryzen 7 5700G processor, 8 CPU and GPU cores, 3.8 gigahertz. I figured that'd be good enough. Well, if it isn't, that'll tell you something about AMD, Logan Black. Remember, David Wilcox says Star Wars is a documentary. Yes, he does. Photoshop for SGI was like 6K back then. Yeah, so the only software you could get for those old workstation machines, by the way, I love Unix, so I did have a good time playing with it and seeing what it could do. But in order to get any of the software, I did find Doom for it, but a machine like that running Doom is kind of a waste. I wanted the 3D modeling stuff that they used to create. Wasn't it Toy Story or that company started on SGI workstations, right? Battlefront 2 is still popping, but I love it. It's my favorite game. Yeah, I'm a big fan of Star Wars Battlefront. I think it's great. I was really hoping they would succeed. Still nice machines today, but back then that was what you wanted. Yeah, that was what you drooled over but could never imagine getting. And then one day it was in my living room and it was fun to play with. And I thought about when I was a kid, seeing them in computer magazines, drooling over them, you know. I got to use one or play with one literally when I was very, very young. I don't even remember, but back when they were popping and they were the big holy shit computer to use after Amigas. I got, somebody that I knew worked someplace that had one, and I got to go there and mess with it. Pixar started on Silicon Graphics. That's what I meant. Pixar. Yeah. Pixar. Unreal Engine 5. Those Unreal Engines are looking great. Every once in a while, I say, I'm going to learn Unreal Engine. And then estimate of the situation, I start it, and then I don't get very far. It's a lot more complicated than I would have thought for a video game engine, but holy shit, the stuff that you could do with Unreal Engines now. And by the way, I think I used Unreal Engine 1. It's a one-click install. Real? What is it? Message me on Discord again. Give me the link. Put the link in the Discord. I will try it, right? Can you solve the 3x3 Rubik's Cube? Says Zizix. Well, thank you for the super chat, but probably not. I've always hated Rubik's Cubes and puzzles like that. They frustrate me. But thanks for helping us to praise the cash.
Praise the cash, praise the cash.
Yeah, we've praised the cash very well tonight. By the way, we'll be back tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I hope you'll be here with us. And it would appear that I'm not going to the cabin for a couple of weeks. So that should translate into more live shows and less replays, but we'll be here every night at 9 p.m. one way or the other. I hope you'll be with us. Logan Black, let me know how that works out for you. Yeah, I want to try that. I want a local version. And I hear Mr. Ian is putting the GitHub links into our Discord. And by the way, Mr. Ian's great with helping people with some of this shit. So if you're curious about a local AI generator that you can use, I'm getting sick of the cloud ones because they always want money. You know, like they let you use it. The beginning of the month, I'm okay. You know, the beginning of the month, I can use some different AI tools, but then I use up all the credits they give you for free, and then it's super slow, or they keep nagging you to give them a membership to use it. I want a locally generated one. Archaic Revival says, I just removed the stickers to solve the Rubik Cube. Yeah, my son tried that. Quite a few games, says The Sixth Sense, only a short variety of gaming engines, even less are proprietary and self-created. Yeah, everybody's using Unreal Engine now, right? What was the game that was completely coded in machine language? Roller Coaster Tycoon. Now that's a feat. Yeah, Logan Black says, great show, Cambion. Thank you. Oh, thank you, Mr. Ian, and happy birthday. We appreciate you. Thanks for appreciating us. Man with the golden voice. It's his birthday on Thursday. Everybody wish him a happy birthday. And Art and Paranormal says, thank you, Zizix. Yeah, we thank all of our kind and generous benefactors. So we've done our due diligence. I'm going to bounce on out of here. We've got some fun music videos to share with you tonight, since I can do that tonight. And we want to thank Simon Fly, who is the provider of those fun music videos that we play. So I'll be back tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. For now, we've done our due diligence. I want to thank all of our kind and generous benefactors. We want to thank our YouTube chat moderator, the one and only Ardent Paranormal. She's the only moderator we have left. And we thank her for her help and kindness and assistance. And we invite you to check out our check out our website, truthseekershow.com. There you'll find all the latest audio and video version of our show here, right on the main website, truthseekershow.com. One Truthseeker, the word show.com, all one word, truthseekershow.com. Check out our website. And we invite you to join our Discord server. Ardent Paranormal will certainly help me out by posting a link to join the Discord server. We've got a lot of new users over there in the Discord server. And it's if you like these chats with like-minded people interested in these strange and esoteric subjects, you'll like our Discord server. And we want to remind you to smash that like button if you haven't already on the way out. Leave some comments. It really does help with the YouTube algorithm. Every day I say my prayer to the YouTube AI algorithm gods. Please find favor in us. Move us up in the search rankings. We pray in Google's name. Amen. That's all I can do. My show is in the hands of a YouTube AI algorithm. If they like us and we get a lot of engagement, we do better. So engagement really helps. Smash the like button, hit that comment button, leave some comments. I try to reply to many of them. I read that, just so everybody's aware, I read every single comment. Sometimes I don't have time to reply to them all, but I reply to some of them. And we thank each and every one of you who are helping us with that engagement. It really, really does help. So I'll be back tomorrow night at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'll leave you with some wonderful music videos from the one, the only Simon Fly. So that's all I got for you, friends. Until next time, my name is Stephen Cambian. Good night, and God bless all of you.
When you say crash retrieval, what do you mean? When you say crash retrieval, when you say crash retrieval, what do you mean? When you say crash retrieval, when you say crash retrieval, what do you mean? When you say crash retrieval, when you say crash retrieval, what do you mean? When you say crash retrieval,
these are retrieving non-human origin technical vehicles, call it spacecraft if you will. These are retrieving non-human origin technical vehicles, call it spacecraft if you will. No kidding, non-human, exotic origin. No kidding, non-human, exotic origin. No kidding, non-human, exotic origin. No kidding, non-human, exotic origin.
We have spacecraft from another species.
We do, yeah.
How many?
By a number.
We have spacecraft from another species.
We do, yeah.
How many?
By a number.
We have spacecraft from another species.
We do, yeah.
How many?
By a number.
We have spacecraft from another species.
We do, yeah.
How many?
By a number.
When you say crash retrieval, what do you mean? When you say crash retrieval, when you say crash retrieval, what do you mean? When you say crash retrieval, when you say crash retrieval, what do you mean? When you say crash retrieval, when you say crash retrieval, what do you mean? When you say crash retrieval, when you say crash, when you say crash, when you say crash, when you say crash, when you say, when you say, when you say, when you say.
We are potentially on the brink of UFO disclosure. We are potentially on the brink of UFO disclosure.
It depends how you define disclosure. It depends how you define disclosure. It depends how you define disclosure. It depends how you define disclosure.
We are potentially on the brink of UFO disclosure. We are potentially on the brink of UFO disclosure. Skeptics and UFO believers. Skeptics and UFO believers. Skeptics and UFO believers. Skeptics and UFO believers. Lou Elizondo, Jay Stratton, Travis S. Taylor. Disclosure. Lou Elizondo, Jay Stratton, Travis S. Taylor, disclosure. Lou Elizondo, Jay Stratton, Travis S. Taylor, disclosure. Lou Elizondo, Jay Stratton, Travis S. Taylor, disclosure. Government's knowledge of UFOs will end with facts. Government's knowledge of UFOs will end with facts. I will say that the disclosure process could implode. I do not deny that. I do not deny that. Lou Elizondo, Jay Stratton, Travis S. Taylor, disclosure. 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 Skeptics and UFO believers, 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 skeptics and UFO believers.
Multiple sources. Multiple sources. 3 sources. Credible sources. 3 sources. Credible sources. Multiple sources. Multiple sources. 3 sources. Credible sources. 3 sources. Credible sources. Fighter jets were deployed. Multiple sources. Fighter jets were deployed. Sources. I've heard of now from 3 different people.
Yeah, I've heard the same thing.
I've heard of now from 3 different people.
Yeah, I've heard the same thing. The lack of information, the lack of information, the lack of information.
This is an ongoing mystery. Multiple sources. This is an ongoing mystery. Multiple sources.
Intelligence sources.
This is an ongoing mystery. Multiple sources. This is an ongoing mystery. Multiple sources.
Intelligence sources.
The lack of information, 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 the lack of information,
Multiple sources. Multiple sources. 3 sources. Credible sources. 3 sources. Credible sources. Multiple sources. Multiple sources. 3 sources. Credible sources. 3 sources. Credible sources. This is an ongoing mystery. Multiple sources. This is an ongoing mystery. Multiple sources.
Intelligence sources.
This is an ongoing mystery. Multiple sources. This is an ongoing mystery. Multiple sources.
Intelligence sources.
activity.